Hello. Hello there, my name is Bruce Rain from Breakfast Creations, and thank you very much for joining my stream. A quick shout out. Hello, Jeff Barnard, Mr. Crimstar, Thomas Armstrong, Xeroxis Labs, Retro Techie, Joe Williams, Michael's Workshop. Thank you very much for joining me. If you are new to one of my live streams, please jump on and say hello. Always happy to say hello to new folks. It is Sunday, 11:15 a.m. here at the moment. And it is a nice but overcast day today. So I thought it was a good opportunity to get in here and try and get a little bit of work done, because as usual I have a monstrous backlog of computer repair to do. Hello Justin, thanks for joining. And also to Mr. Crimstar, thank you very much for the congratulations. Yes, I cracked the 15k subscribers the other day, which came as a bit of a surprise because I've been gradually just getting, a few subscribers a day, ba-bump, ba-bump. And then I had one day where I got 430 subscribers in a single day for no apparent reason, just on that one day, which just pushed me over the 15k subscribers, quite unaware. So, yeah, I mean, here I am, and thank you to everyone who watches, and thank you to everyone who subscribes, and thank you for all the nice comments on my vids and all that sort of stuff, and during the chat here. So do appreciate it, and I am glad that people sort of like to watch this stuff and enjoy it. So SpaceX is returning now also. I said to them, I rang them up and I said, guys, I'm planning to live stream. And they turned around and they said, no worries, we'll hold off. Can't trust them, those guys at SpaceX, I'm telling you. Okay. Well, thank you very much for saying that, Retro Techie. Look at this. This is a live stream that is completely devoid of any Mac members other than myself. What is going on? Where's my support? Goodness me. Anyhow, as you can see from the... just a very quick little recap on people who were watching my last live stream, and I was working on I had a few LCs and a Color Classic, and I ended up doing LC 575 and a Color Classic, and with both of them we had fairly sketchy sort of results at the end of the recapping. Both of those spent a little bit of quality time in the ultrasonic cleaner, and after cleaning and drying they worked perfectly. Both of them worked beautifully. Chimed, booted, everything fine. So just a little reminder to folks that when you do have these capacitor leakages or these problems caused by leaky capacitors, that cleaning is as important as replacing those capacitors, because all that electrolyte and gunk, and once that electrolyte leaks out and things stick to it, and then you can just end up with these little conductive blobs throughout the board, and they won't work. So yeah, really important to clean that stuff. So anyhow, that was a happy ending to those. They both worked perfectly. Scott N, hello, thank you for joining. First one I've caught live, awesome. They got the date wrong, they already delayed twice. Yes, I mean, SpaceX, huh? Dear. Just because they're landing their jets upright, they think they're special or something. Okay, so, I mean, look at this. This is Mac 2, come on. Mac 2. So Mac 2, one of my favourite Macs. I'm just going to jump across here to the top view so you can actually see the board, or see most of the board. This is the Mac 2, as you can see, for using my hands as scale. I'm just going all Sean Action Retro here. You can see that it is a fairly significantly sized board, but having said that, there's quite a lot of vacant space around here. It's not like really crammed in board like some of the other ones. And that's actually quite a nice thing when it comes to doing things like recapping, because there's huge amounts of space here with these caps. The interesting thing about the Mac 2 is, if you have a look at this, you can see that we've got this surface mount electrolytic capacitor here, and we have little pads on the either side, which you probably can't see. But here and here, you see two through holes. And the reason why they're there is because this board, when it first came out, didn't have surface mount electrolytic capacitors. It had through hole axial capacitors, axial electrolytic capacitors, like these ones here, just smaller, in the place of all of these. And what they then did later on is they replaced those with these surface mount electrolytic ones. I guess that was almost definitely cost based. But of course what that also means is this particular board, this later revision of the Mac 2 board, is one that absolutely needs recapping. The older Mac 2 board that has the axial caps, you can actually get away with not recapping them. I still recap them when I have them, or if people send them to me for recapping, I will still recap them, but they're still going strong without them. Oh gosh, a bit more here. Okay, so Mystery Margot, hello. Scarlet Swordfish, thanks for joining. I haven't seen you in a while, Scarlet, or have I? Have I or haven't I? I just feel like I haven't seen your name in the chat there for a while. So if you've had a hiatus from my videos, which I understand, sometimes they get a little bit too much, welcome back. Mike's Mac Shack. Hello, Mike. Thank you. Bruce and his damn Mac 2s. Mike's not a fan of the Mac 2. But one of the great things about this being my live stream is he can't say anything bad about it other than what goes in the chat. So, anyhow, the Mac 2, the important thing from a historical perspective being that it was the very first of the modular Macintoshes. Up until this point, if you wanted to get a Macintosh, it was a compact Mac. It was a Mac Plus, original Macintosh, 512K, sort of Mac Plus, SE, no, we weren't up to SE30 yet. But anyhow, they were all compact Macs. This here was the first modular Mac with expansion. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new bus slots for putting in expansion cards. Whether it be network cards or video cards, whatever the case may be. Over here, we've got 8 RAM slots. Now, although the original version of the Mac 2, which this one is, you would not have been able to put more than, I think it's 64 in it. There was a ROM upgrade that would allow you to go the full 128 megabytes by putting in 8 16 megabyte SIMs in there. It has a PMMU, or Page Memory Management Unit. There is the 68020 CPU, and here is the 68881 floating point unit for mathematical calculations, floating numbers. This is the reason I think why Mike is so kind of critical of this is it really wasn't that much of a machine. If you were running, I think whatever it was, System 5 or something on this, there was a pretty zippy Mac. But the 68020 was not really that awesome a CPU. They didn't really start, the Mac 2s didn't really start to get good until they were using the 68030. But having said that, it is a very historical part of Apple's, development, as they, they were trying to have a computer that would be seen more by the professionals, because it was expandable. You could choose your own monitor, so you could stick a bigger monitor on it if you wanted, but most importantly, you could stick a color monitor on it, and that was new. Up until that point, if you wanted a Macintosh, you were working in black and white. Beautiful, crisp resolution, WYSIWYG screen, graphical user interface, lots of good things about it, but nonetheless black and white. And this allowed you to see the world in color, and that was a big, big change. This one didn't have any internal videos, so you couldn't actually use this without a display card. So you'd have to have a display card in one of these slots here, and then you could output to the video. But one of the things that the old Macintosh II brought at a very, very early stage, seriously, I was doing this in like about 1991 or something like that, and you could probably do it before then. But having more than one display card in there, and having more than one monitor, and having a desktop that spanned across from one to the other. And I can remember, I don't know, maybe a decade later, one of my PC friends showing me a setup that he had. It's probably not a decade, but anyhow, many years later, showing me a PC setup that he had with 2 graphics cards and 2 screens, and going, "Hey man, check out what I've done here." And I'm sort of like, "Oh, news, dude." We've been doing that with the Mac for years. Sorcerer Stan, hello. Has the stream started, or is YouTube mad at me? I think YouTube might be mad at you, Thomas, because the stream has definitely started. We are, how about I type that? I'll type that for the benefit of Thomas. Stream has started. There we go. So, there we go. So anyhow, there's, just continuing here with the, the little bit of Macintosh II history here. I am a big fan of this computer, and that's mainly because I bought one in 1990. 1992, beginning of 1992. I bought it second hand, and I think it was about $3,600 I paid for it. I then later on, a couple of years later, I managed to get hold of the ROM upgrade for mine. So you replace these two chips here, and you replace this little guy here, and that gives you the ability to, first of all, address all of the memory. All of the memories, you know, you could go all the way up to 128 megabytes, but also you could actually put in a super drive floppy drive, so the 1.44 megabyte floppy disk drive in there. Up until then, it was only 800K. And I actually have a Mac 2 board that I bought on eBay, a Mac 2 that has that has the ROM upgrade. My original one had it. That original one is long gone, but I managed to get one with the ROM upgrade, so I'm absolutely ecstatic about that. This one does not have the ROM upgrade. This is the original set of ROMs, so this will only use 800K. You can generally tell by looking at the dates on these ROMs. See, this one here says 83 to 87. That one says 83 to 87. If you had the ROM upgrade, I think it had 88 on it, something like that. So anyhow, I think without any further ado, we're going to have a look at this one under the microscope. We're going to obviously rip off all these old capacitors, and we're going to put on new capacitors, but more importantly, we've got to repair some traces. This used to have two axial batteries right here. They would have been Varta batteries with leads coming out of both sides. They've soldered into the board, and the big problem with those is that although they were, you know, very quiet little leakers, they were still leakers. They generally didn't do the exciting explosion that you would get on some of those Mac cells and stuff like that, where you could just go and it would just have bits of corrosion all over the board as they kind of blew their stuff and put all that corrosive alkaline all over the board. This one, these are the actual Vartas, and interestingly enough, probably up until a couple of years ago, there was probably no corrosion on this board. This sort of stuff is only just starting to happen now, but it is happening on virtually every Macintosh II board that crosses my desk, and it all happens in the same place. And I'll point out those locations as we go. Okay, just going to double check on the Patrick. Is it Gui? Patrick Gui? I don't know how to pronounce your surname. I'm sorry, Patrick. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for joining. Caden Yang, hello. Any chance you can show an iMac G3 being recapped one day? Do you use tantalums on those? One thing I can tell you is it's very unlikely you will ever see me work on a G3 iMac. Yes, I totally accept that they are needing recapping at this stage. Some of them are. They are typically, though, power supplies problems. I don't know that they're having leakage on the logic boards. I think it's mainly the power supplies run into strife on those, and flyback transformers and things like that. I don't work on them, so I don't actually have many of them come in. The main reason why I don't work on them is I don't have a whole lot of space, and they are big. So when you're in a situation where someone says, hey, I've got a G3 iMac for you to repair, the next thing you know, you get 2 or 3 of them and you're just starting to run out of space. So I don't work on them. So that for that reason, I generally don't. You're probably unlikely to see any videos on them. Maybe in the future, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But certainly for the foreseeable future, I probably won't be working on those. So anyhow, yeah, these Varta batteries, even though, I mean, when these were snipped, they probably still had some voltage left in them, but they were still kind of leaking enough stuff to cause some problems. And generally, the places I see problems are down here, along here, and here. They're the most common problems. Now, that doesn't mean that everywhere else on the board is immune. I've had some where they've had problems up here around the CPU. I've had some where they've had problems around here, around the, what is that? That's the glue chip. So, I mean, anything is possible. I had one where I had a damaged trace running underneath these RAM slots. Sorry, I guess I'm a ROM and RAM mixed up. ROM, RAM. And I ended up having to run a wire underneath these and then kind of stick it down and then attach it at the other end. It was a pain. Hello, Dana. Welcome to the live stream. Hello, friends. So, I'm very well, thank you, Dana. Oh my goodness, Dana is a funny human being, I tell you. If only he would get out there and do some stuff so we could watch his videos. Oh yes, okay, look, here's a really important one. House of Moth, Jay, welcome. Thank you very much for joining the stream. For those that aren't aware, Jay's website, appleserialnumberinfo.com, is where you put in your serial number for your Mac and get information about it. Lots of information, more information than you'll get from some of those other websites out there. And not only that, it includes quite a lot of vintage models, and that range of vintage models is expanding every day. The choices that were up there at the moment was the mirror drive door G4, the 2012 Mac Pro, the TAM, and what's the fourth one? What was the other one? So anyone who's not familiar with the acronym TAM, 20th Anniversary Macintosh, one of Apple's best computers ever. I have so much trouble saying that with a straight face. Okay, all right. Busy eating dinner. Good enough. Okay, so 2017 12-inch MacBook. Oh, okay. All right, no worries. Fair enough. Not really one of my faves. So, so for me, my vote, and obviously you guys make your own choice, huh? For me, my vote would probably be the 2012 Mac Pro, and the main reason for that is I have one. It's my main daily driver up in the house there. So, I've got a 2012 5.1 Mac Pro, dual hex core 3 gigahertz, I think, with 64 gigs of RAM. And it's a great machine, even in this day and age, to be nearly 10 years old, it still flies. So, so yes, I am definitely going to be saying vote for the Mac Pro. My second choice would probably be the mirror drive door. I mean, I did have one of those. My parents had one of those back in the past. And not a bad computer. Quite nice looking and whatnot. So, once again, I am, 15 minutes into the stream, and I've done nothing but yabber. Quit your yabber. And I've got a new t-shirt here. This is a fairly esoteric t-shirt. And I invite people to tell me what the reference for this one is. If anyone wants to jump into the chat and say what the reference of this particular t-shirt is. As you know, I often have discussions in my chats about Fulhams, going to the pictures. So, yep. Well, Vina, yes, you are right. It is an Alien reference. Probably more, as was said by Michael's Workshop, Alien 2. But yes, you are basically both right with that one. So well done. Well done. Right, so let's have a look here. So anyhow, yes. When you get a moment, jump across to appleserialnumberinfo.com. Go and cast your vote for the Mac of the Month for May. Can you believe it's May already? What the hell, man? How the hell did that happen? So, a couple of things I'm going to talk about very quickly with this Mac too. Just jumping back to the top view here. These Macs will not start up without two batteries attached to them. Both 3.6 volt batteries, one there and one there. One of them is the PRAM, one of them is involved in the startup circuit, but they both need to be there, they both need to be present in order for this thing to start up via the soft start on the keyboard. And the interesting thing is that the startup circuit, which is sort of around here and around here, that is really one of the most common places for this to get corrosion. And so for that reason, one of the first real symptoms of one of these is the fact that it just won't start anymore. You go to try and switch it on, press the button on the back here, bing, bing, press the power button on the keyboard, nothing, dead. And that often leads people to think that it's the power supply. Oh, the power supply's dead because it won't start up. But it's not. In most cases, it's not. The power supplies can have problems, but in most cases, it's not the power supply. It's the startup circuit. Now, I actually have a power supply floating around here somewhere, in the sheds here somewhere, so I'll pull that later on, which bypasses the startup circuit. So in other words, it just forces this thing to be on. So this power button here doesn't do anything. It just sends it the power to be on. It says, be on you. And that's a really good thing from a diagnostics point of view that I use all the time. So when I get a Mac 2, I can connect it up to that power supply. If I get a Mac 2 that someone says this is dead, I can connect it up to that specific power supply, which overrides the startup circuit. And if the thing starts up, well, it's like I know exactly what's wrong with it. It's a problem in the startup circuit. I don't know that there's any benefit in me actually trying to see what happens. I may as well. How about it? How about it? How about it? Let's see what happens if we just power it up right now to see if we get any noise from it. Because, I mean, why not? You know, who cares if something blows up in my face? They make for extra subs. Where's the power supply? Okay. Okay. Alright, who took it? I had it just a minute ago. Who was it? That's not it. Come on. Where's it gone? It can't be too far away, for goodness sake. This is crazy. Is that it? Ah, there it is. I put it away. There's someone like me to put something away. If you get a Mac 2. Yeah, sorry. There's a bit of a running joke that I have with Dana from Dana Does Stuff. Which, you know, he doesn't do a lot of stuff, but, you know, he might one day. He has never laid his hands on a Mac 2. He has never seen a Mac 2. He is a vintage Mac collector and does not have a Mac 2, has never seen a Mac 2. And for some unknown reason, I keep coming across them. I now have 3 Mac 2s. Now, admittedly, I only have one working power supply, but that I'm trying to rectify. So I have 3 Mac 2s, and in terms of repairs, I get heaps of them. I mean, just like Mac 2s constantly. And it's just a little bit frustrating for poor Dana because he would like one. He nearly bought one recently, but he forgot to bid on eBay, which, you know, he obviously doesn't want one that badly. Alright, so we've got a little speaker connected up so we can see what it does. I've got it all plugged in here to my power supply. Hello, Michael. Is there anyone I haven't said hello to? Will a Quadra 700 start without a battery? To my knowledge, yes, it will. So Quadra 700 is another one with one of those startup circuits. So if you've got, you know, generally you don't have capacitor leakage with them because they don't have any surface mount electrolytic capacitors. But if you are running into trouble getting it started, it's usually one of two things. One of them is battery leakage, because they're one of the ones that had a battery on it and they can explode and destroy it. I've got one over here in that state. The second thing is power supplies. I think the Quadra 700 power supply is not too bad, but they can cause problems. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the Quadra 700 will start without a battery. Pretty sure. Yes, yes. Yes. Yes, it does. Okay, so I'm going to just plug this in. This will just come straight on because it has no power switch. So as soon as I hit it with some voltage here, it's going to go. And we'll just see what happens. I suspect nothing, but we'll just see. And that was a fairly accurate assessment on my part. Nothing happened. Nothing. So, okay, we've proven it to ourselves. This one is dead as a doornail. And we are going to try and make it undead. No, that actually makes it sound like it's going to be a zombie, doesn't it? Not dead. How about that? Attack of the Zombie Mac 2. Okay. Oh, I'm caught up in my microphone. Sorry, there's probably horrible crackle noises coming through. Sorry about that, folks. I know that it gets a little bit iffy when I touch it, so sorry, folks. Okay, blew people's ears off. Got an LC 550 for $50. That's a pretty good deal. So the 550, which is, oh God, what is it? 68030, is it 25 megahertz, 20 megahertz, or is it 33? I think the 550 is 33 megahertz, isn't it? That's the same as a Color Classic 2 in terms of speed. I can't remember. I get all of those mixed up. The Color Classic really should have been called the LC 500, don't you reckon? It's so similar to those LC 5 range of computers. Shouldn't have been a Color Classic, should have been called LC 500. Or not. Right, let's go and have a look at some of the corrosion that I've been talking about here, because it is plentiful. And we just want to get a little bit of a sneak peek of what it is we're going to have to be doing here. Once again, this is all happening in exactly the same place as it always does, so fairly normal. All right, oh, look at these rammies. Here we go. So, what we're looking for is green traces. Now, not this kind of green, but where is it? This kind of green. You see all the little bulges coming up on that? That's basically, that colour green is the colour of corroded, oh here we are, corroded copper. So that's the copper underneath the solder mask, corroding and bubbling up through there. So that is the green we do not like to see when we're working on computers. That is a very unhealthy form of green. And what's worse about this is you can get little spots of it in places. So, you know, you might just have one little spot of green somewhere and it's enough to actually be a break in the trace. So if you have a look here, you have some little spots there. They're probably still okay. We're probably still getting continuity through there. But look, there's a little bit of corrosion. I think that's still okay. A little bit around there, a little bit around there. We'll just have to see. This one here that runs down there, that's almost definitely shot. It usually is. That one usually needs to be fixed. Over here to where the batteries are. Oh, look at this deliciousness. Look at that one. Wow, blackening going on in there. So that's nice. Then we travel along here. I push this thing with my nose. There we go. Still got some ugliness here. And then over here. This one always. This one here. That always goes. Always corrodes. Always. Yeah, so anyhow, I've got a little bit of work to do here. These little wires that run down here, they sometimes corrode as well, but we can just ignore them because they just go down to the little testing pins at the front. So they're like what on a newer computer you would call a JTAG. Okay, this is not Spaghetti Mac. No, so yesterday I was having just a Skype call with my Maciac friends, and during that time I was working on a Mac that has been called Spaghetti Mac. It's a board that was sent to me by a customer, a Mac II board, and someone had a go at doing trace repair on it, and it had left it with all these sort of lines of spaghetti wire all over it. That's why I call it the Spaghetti Mac. I have removed all of that. I've replaced all of that spaghettiness with nice, neat trace repairs. It still doesn't work. Did some more checking on it, repaired a couple more broken traces, still didn't work. Put it away because I had too much other stuff, so I put it aside to work on it at a later date. Pulled it out yesterday, did a little bit more work, found I think 4 more busted traces, repaired those, still doesn't work. Works more than it did, but it still doesn't work. The fact that every time I look at it for an extended period of time I find another trace damage, it suggests to me that there is still an important one I haven't found yet. So I've just got to get back and have a look. Kyle GP, hello. Some traces are more likely to corrode than others. Yeah, okay, that is a really good question, Scarlett, and I would say almost definitely. You know, it is almost definitely related to there being current flowing through it, you know, sort of more consistently. So this is all related to the battery being there. So when the battery is in there, there's the battery, there's some electricity sitting on there, and my guess is that that accelerates that that corrosion. So almost definitely these traces that we're looking at are ones that would have current flowing through them, you know, not just when it's on, but when it's off as well. That would be my guess. It's the best I can fathom anyway. So let's just have a quick look at the chat here, see if I've missed out on anything here. Cool. 33 megahertz for the 550. Yep, okay, no worries. Color Classic is a nicer sounding name though. Fair enough. Called the Classic XL. Okay. Rigatoni. Not penne, come on. Penne is like big hoop things. There's no way penne. I could say it would be maybe a vermicelli. How about that? Spiral ones, yeah, that's a Fusilli, I think, for the spiral ones. Retro checking my, okay, so, hey Bruce, my Color Classic just got recapped by a buddy. It won't turn on at all still. Oh dear. Lots of reasons for that. I can't really just sort of say, hey, try this or try that. When I'm in an instance where something like that happens, first thing I would do is I'd chuck it in the ultrasonic cleaner if it hasn't already been cleaned, because they do have problems with that. The other is the sound chip, which is up in the top left-hand corner of them. That is involved in the startup, and so if that sound chip has been damaged by capacitor leakage, it could be the cause of the problem if there's a broken trace around there. Then the other one is the CUDA chip. The CUDA chip is involved in getting that message from the keyboard. So obviously when you switch them on at the back, for those that don't know, with a Color Classic, if you switch the power button on at the back, it's pretty much just putting it into standby mode. It's not actually switching it on. You switch it on with the keyboard. So if you have a problem with that signal from the keyboard getting to the computer, you're not going to get it to switch on. So if it's completely dead, you get no green light. It could also be the CUDA chip, which is in the top right-hand corner of the board. Depending on which way you're holding it, could also be the bottom left-hand side. But anyhow, he cleaned it with ultrasonic. Well, okay, yep. So let me see if I've just got a Color Classic floating around here, which I probably do. No, that's an 040. That's a Color Classic. Hello, Color Classic. So, problems that you are likely to see are with one that is dead, just completely dead. It's likely to be problems to do with damaged traces or corrosion or something, or gunk, whatever, in this region here. Of course, the most important thing is check your work. Whenever I'm doing a recapping job and it's not working afterwards, the first thing I do is thoroughly check my work, make sure I didn't accidentally create any shorts or anything like that. That's number one. That's always the first thing you should do. Doesn't matter how good or bad you are at recapping. Check your work first, always. But then you'd be looking at this area here, and you'd be looking at this area here. So that's the CUDA chip there. So I'd be looking out for problems around with that. They die sometimes too. I've had quite a few of these where from the corrosion, these have ended up getting damaged, and it's when I replace them, they start working beautifully again. Don't ask me for one, because I just gave away my last one the other day, and I wouldn't have given it away if I realised it was my last one. So I've got to try and source some more of those, because they are a common weak point. So, let's go. With the Classic, isn't it? Can't you trick it into starting up by actually just pulling out the board and putting it back in again while it's switched on? I don't know. Someone told me that. So, yeah. All right, so let's get into looking after this. The first thing I'm going to do is start getting these old caps off. Let's go to microscope big. There we go. That's my view. That's what I call this view. This view is called microscope big. Right, I didn't even turn my soldering iron on. How about that? Welcome to the professionals. Righty. This is my Hacko FX951 soldering iron. I saw someone on one of my videos the other day put in a little comment saying, $500 for a soldering iron, I can pick that one up for $50. And I thought, no, you can't. You might be able to pick up a knockoff of it, but you're not going to get the real one for $50. You probably won't pay $500 either, because I'm in Australia. I have to pay that because we have an Australian tax. And what I don't mean an actual tax, just everything seems to cost more out here because, you know, we're just lucky. This is the pin from the axial battery, and it's sticking up, and I don't want to accidentally jab myself, so I'm going to get rid of this first. Oh, wow, look at the corrosion. Look at it. Little spots all over the place. It's going to be fun. Everyone just kind of prepare yourself for this one potentially not getting fixed today. Just a warning. Ooh, smell that. Guess who hasn't got his fume extractor on at the moment? Haven't put my gloves on either. Fume extractor comes on. Sorry about the noise, folks, but it's for my health. Come on. See if I can get this little guy out. Out. This is clearly clinging on to a ground plane somewhere, so the heat that I'm putting on this is getting sucked away because it's obviously attached to a large plane of copper. So not having much luck there. I might have to come at that from the other side. I might. Let's see how we go with this one. Positive side's usually easier to get off because it's not attached to a ground plane. Yeah, look at how easy that one is. Look at it. Look at it. I think the pins are bent on the bottom. Yep, they are. So I might unbend them. Come at that other one from the other side. Trace right. So I just want to give a little bit of a backstory with this particular Mac 2, because as I said, I keep finding Mac 2s. For those who might know from the sort of vintage Mac circles, a very, very helpful individual called Jeremy Barhyde. He's very active in the vintage Mac community, and in particular out here in Australia. And I contacted him because he actually gave me a monitor. He got hold of a bunch of monitors and he didn't want them all, so he said, hey, does anyone want these monitors? And I said, I would love that one, please. He said, here you go. And then I said to him, look, you don't by any chance happen to have a spare Mac 2 power supply? I have two Mac 2s, and both of them, one of them is missing a power supply and the other one, the power supply is faulty. Now, it's my intention to repair that power supply, but given the fact that I don't have any schematics or anything, it's a lot easier to repair something if you have a working one. So, anyhow, he phoned me, and he said, I do have a Mac 2 power supply, but it's in a Mac 2 that doesn't work. So I'm going to send the whole thing to you. I said, oh, gosh, okay, thank you. And this is it. Now, he was kind of talking about it being a real lost cause. And so I am wanting to do this to some extent to try and, to sort of demonstrate that, this level of damage isn't necessarily a lost cause. It may not be an easy fix, but it's not necessarily the end all. Just trying to get this through here. If the worst comes to the worst, if I can't get this through, I will probably just use, I'll probably use a bigger soldering iron tip so that I can get more heat to the location, because it's all about that heat. There we go. That should get us through. So let's come in at the other side now. We'll give these a bit of a yank, and I think we'll get these all out. And we've just got to suck all the solder out of the hole. Right. Just a quick look here. We've got 30 people watching. Thank you to you all for giving up a little bit of your time on your whatever day it is there at the moment. Saturday night, Sunday morning. Look at it. Look at it. Just look at it. It just seems hopeless. I really could be doing something monumentally stupid here, and maybe should have just thrown this in a bin. But if I can get another Mac 2 working, I'll be pretty happy. Because despite what Mike says, the Mac 2 is cool. Mike from Mike's Mac Shack, do check out his channel. Do subscribe and go check out some of his movies. He did one just recently on the PowerBook 150. Where he had nothing but nice things to say about it. Suck it up that solder. Yeah, it's interesting. So Sam, who has just said that they would like to see a diagnostic video, because the fact is that I primarily do videos on just repairing visible damage, and there is a fairly good reason for that. It is that when I am actually doing proper diagnostic work, where I'm sitting there getting out the multimeter or the oscilloscope or something like that, I tend to go a bit quiet, and I'm just not sure how good a live stream video it might potentially make. So that's kind of the reason that I tend to just make it more about the soldering techniques than about the diagnostic. There is also the other problem with these, and that is that most of these Macs, with only a few exceptions, we don't have schematic diagrams for them. I think there is one floating around. I think there's a Beaumark one for the Mac II. For those who aren't familiar with Beaumark, it was a company that actually went and reverse engineered schematics. They were paid to reverse engineer schematics from the boards, which of course just must have been an absolute nightmare job. Just going to come at this from the other side again. Just wanting to get the solder out of here. And of course, when you don't have a schematic, it does make, other than fairly basic diagnostics, very difficult. And then of course there's also the chips. You might be wanting to look at a chip and try and work out what the problem with it is, and you can't find any specs on the chip. So you don't know where the power is supposed to go in, or you don't know where the signals are and stuff like that. And that in itself makes the diagnostic very difficult as well. So, yeah. So anyhow, that was a very long answer to a question, wasn't it? It wasn't even a question. I still went for ages. Come on, solder. Come on over. I'm just trying to get all of that solder out of there, but this is one that is just hot. Super hot. Just going to try and... I'll tell you what I'm going to do while I'm here. I'm going to scrape this a little bit. This is my little scalpel that I use for doing my scrapey scrapes. I'll try and get the corrosion off and see what's underneath. It's always, the hope is that when we scrape the top off, we get something like we have here, and we have copper underneath. What we don't want is to scrape it and find nothing underneath. So this is just going to be a scraper from this thing. I hope no one minds that horrible scraping noise, because that's what I'm going to be doing here for like the next half an hour, I suspect. The scraping. I think I'm going to need a new blade soon too, because this one's leaving little marks. Yeah. See, I've got all these little divots in the scalpel here, so, and they will then leave little marks on the board. So, I get a relatively short lifespan from these blades. Especially on one like this. Got a lot of UV mask to remove here. But, as it says on the description, it is a trace repair video. Alright, let's see if I can get that last bit of solder out there. Too easily distracted, Mr. Rain. Just quoting my school reports. That'll I can poke a thingy through there. That'll That'll This scraping noise is really starting to get on my nerves now. Oh, I've got to take this stupid metal thing off. Stupid! It's this little RF shieldy type thing that hangs around the all of the, what do you call those things? The plugs. Looks like that. And it's just annoying. It's very annoying. So I'm taking it off. Banished from the board. So, generally when I'm dealing with these sorts of traces that are, as you can see, sort of a bit spotty, I will generally scrape away as much of the corrosion as I can. So the mask away, and then the corrosion. I want to try and reveal just a straight line of bright copper, but it's kind of patchy along some of these. And so what I'm going to do, once I've done enough scrapey scrape there, I'm going to douse it with a little bit of, you see, I was supposed to be taking the caps off first, and I just got sidetracked. I got completely and totally distracted, and now I'm starting to look at these traces. Come on, man. Pull your stuff together. Right. I'm going to get some solder here. I'm going to rub it up and down these exposed traces, this exposed copper, like this. Applying heat, flux, solder, all these things. We love all these things. Then I'm going to get my solder wick. Got an email from someone the other day saying, "Oh, there are mistakes on your website. Come and see me to improve them." And he said, "You have misspelt the word gut," because I refer to gut wick, G-O-O-T, and he obviously has some sort of bot looking around a website looking for spelling mistakes or something like that. And when he saw gut, he went, "Oh, you've misspelt good. What an idiot!" It's like, yeah, dude. Have a look at the website, mate. It's a brand name. Okay, so I'm now running backwards and forwards along with the traces here with my wick. And what I'm doing here, apart from getting mouthfuls of smoke, which I don't want, I might have to turn up this thing a bit. Sorry about the noise. I'm just ending up seeing whether any of these traces have breaks in them. If they end up being a straight line, it's good. They don't need to have any repair done to them other than what I've done. But if I see breaks in this, then I'll be inclined to put a wire on. That looks too good. It doesn't look too bad, actually. So, that's pleasing. That is pleasing. Whew. JJ Brewbaker, hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Yeah, diagnostic mode, Bruce, on Skype is so boring, yes I know. It's just, there's long silent periods of silence. It's just not a lot of fun. That's a little bit sketchy there as well. Jeez, this is definitely going to need some cleaning. Right, let's get some of these caps off now. I said I was gonna, and I didn't, and now I'm gonna. So there. Let's get, oh, that's what we want. Get my little heat shield, which is my little blades from those box cutter knife things that you can snap to different lengths, and I use a little spring to make it stand up straight. I hook it over the end there, make it stand up straight, and I plonk that in places like this so that I don't melt the plastic, because these things have plastic all over them and I don't want to melt it. So, time for the hot air station to get rid of these. Do not twist and pull caps off. If you want to, that's fine, but I tell you what, on a board like this, there's a pretty good chance you're going to lose the pads if you did that. So if you're someone that wants to just throw caution to the wind and whip them off that way, go for your life, but you will never get a recommendation from me to do so. These caps here, which are the same ones you'll find on the early Mac SE30, they have the information about the capacitor on a little yellow label around the outside. Around the outside. Just like that. And that little label melts, gets sticky, and it makes these caps stick to your tweezers, which I do not like. We also have here little blobs of component adhesive which come off nice and easily with a little bit of heat. But they make it a bit of a pain because they do make the component a little bit harder to get off. So, go. Here we go. Okay. Yep, here we go. Yep. Right, let's get this guy off. What temperature do I use? On my soldering iron or my hot air station? I will answer both questions. On my hot air station, I'm on 435 degrees Celsius, or centigrade, depending on which you prefer. And I have this running on the highest air output that this station will do. Now, this heating element in this is, I think, starting to get a little bit old, so I'm not sure I am getting my full 435 out of it. But yeah, that's the heat that I have it on. Oh, that one smells. I've got a little Nichicon axial capacitor here, 10 microfarad, 16 volt. I'm going to whip him off because he's going to be replaced. Whip. Gone. Banished from the board. You have no place here. You have no power here. Right. And on the soldering iron, the temperature I use is 430 degrees Celsius, which I do not recommend other people do. because it's very, very hot. It's just the way I like to work. It's the way that works for me. I've tried lots of different temperatures. I've tried lots of different ways of soldering. Lots and lots and lots and lots of methods over the years, and this is the method that works best for me. And so, please don't leave in the comments your soldering iron is too hot, because although it might be too hot for your purposes, it's not too hot for me. That is not meant to any specific individual. That is just a general request, because it's one of the most common things that I have told to me. I get people jumping onto my lives, onto the comments of my videos, all of them, saying, "Your soldering iron's too hot. Hey, your soldering iron's too hot." Your soldering iron's too hot. Yes, it is. It is obviously, it's not the way some people want to work. That's fine. You do not have to set things at the temperature that I set them. I set them at the temperature that works for me. Yeah, I'm sorry about the blurriness. It's blurry for me as well, so let's see if we can rectify that situation. There we go. Come on, you little... There we go. Matthew Joyner, hello. Let's see if we can get some of the solder out of that hole there. Out. Out. This side will come out nice and easy. Just like that. The other one is on the ground plane, sucking away the heat from the soldering iron and being a bit of a pain in the backside. And scrape off all that corrosion. It still looks good though. Got copper underneath it, which is nice. Not like the one I was working on yesterday. This whole trace was just gone. Completely gone. Completely gone. Oh, just my legs getting numb. Sadmac 356. Have you just arrived? Have I said hello to you already or not? I can't remember. Okay, where are we? There we go. This one here. See if we can get the last of this solder out. Out. Or whether I have to get out the big guns. Great big soldering iron tip. Just put a little bit of extra solder there. Let's see if we can suck it out. Oh man, this thing's being a cow. I'm going to put the big soldering iron tip on. The big one. Come on. Where are you? There you are. This is my great big bevel tip that has a very, whoopsie, large flat surface, and that large flat surface helps me get heat where I want it. Just got here. Okay, well thank you, Sadmac 356 for joining. Thank you for arriving. We're just working on a Mac 2 here today. It has some fairly significant trace damage. Can't wait for this thing to get hot. As you can see, it is a huge tip. Huge. That's what... No, I won't say that. Okay. And now let's see if we can suck that solder out. We're using superpowers. Look at that. Magic of heat. Just a little tiny bit there. I might just try and suck out. Perfect. Ah, you didn't see it. You didn't see it. You didn't see it. It's all clear now. It is all clear. It is all clear. Ah, Dave, hello. Welcome to the live stream. Where's my tip? There's my tip. I can tell the one that looks the rattiest is the one that I use because I use it so much. Right, okay, what's going on here? What is it? Cool. All right. So just looking at some interesting news there. That is just in our little Mac-Yak chat there. Some interesting information that's provided by Jay from House of Moth, where he has basically said that Apple's AirTags are still using their traditional serial number format. They have been threatening to start using randomized numbers on their serial numbers rather than like a coded serial number. And they apparently have not made good on their threat just yet. So that's nice for us wanting to use serial numbers to look things up through non-Apple methods. Let's continue getting the caps off and observe just how beautiful that little green trace is, the few traces down there. Isn't it delicious? These do take a little bit more to get off because they do have that component adhesive holding them on. But having said that, and I'm probably going to curse myself by saying this, the ones on the Mac 2 don't seem to pop. It's the later ones that seem to pop. Things like, Color Classics and LC575s and stuff like that. They seem to be the poppers. These older ones just seem to smoulder a bit. Okay. Okay, right. Let's keep going. Keep getting these caps off. Make some progress. It would be. I don't know if we'll get it done today, but it would be really nice to hear this chime today. I often have people commenting in my videos, why don't you ultrasonically clean boards before you start working on them? And I always provide an answer and whatnot. This is probably a board that I would consider ultrasonically cleaning before working on it. Because what it does is it just clears away all that corrosion and would potentially highlight any traces that may not actually make a proper path anymore. They might have actually got gaps in them. And so, depending on what happens in the next however many minutes, this is so annoying. Capacitor sticking to the tweezers because of that yellow gunk on the caps. It's just pisses me off. Get it off. There we go. Got it. Okay. Oh, that worked really well, actually. As the tweezers hit the keyboard, it just flew in opposite directions. Ultrasonic cleaning before the repair, like bleach bombing, crime scene, made it harder for CSI to do their job, which is absolutely correct. The one thing I will say about this, though, is that with this sort of repair on this sort of vintage computer, I will almost definitely still be able to see the problems afterwards. Right, so let's go. But yep, when in particular, if you've got a problem computer where it may not just be a simple recap, it might be liquid damage or something other than that. Sort of having the gunk still on it will often help with the diagnostic process because the gunk leads you straight to the problems. You go, oh look, there's gunk all over this chip. Let's check that chip out. This one's really being awful. I'm not even showing you on the camera. Isn't that mean? Rude of me. Off. Thank you. So rude. Alright, I'm going to go back to the microscope this time. Because I'm not going to be showing you what I'm doing in the microscope. I may as well just go to the top view. I'm going to put some gloves on. I'm starting to get sticky fingers. And I hate sticky fingers. Hate it. Hate. Alright, let's just have a quick look here. I just want to make sure I'm staying up with all the chatty chat. I am basically sitting at... Oh, look at this. I had 49 people watching at some stage. They must have got really boring because they left again. Okay. Where are we? Oopsie. I was probably just prattling on about Mac 2. So people probably jumped on to say, hey, let's see you do some soldering. And I'm like, yeah, well, see, the Mac 2, it came out in 1980, whatever it was. 6, 87? Help me here, help me. Oh, good lord. Off. Cute. Now, there's one thing that I don't like about working on a Mac 2. It annoys me more than anything else about it, and that is how big the board is. It just doesn't fit on my desk terribly well. But the fact that I now have an ultrasonic cleaner big enough to clean it in one go brings me much joy. Excuse me. Oh, look at this little cap floating up here. Charles, hello, thank you for joining. I know you can't see it very well, but this is as far up as the board goes on my desk. I suppose I could move the microscope, couldn't I? There are lots of caps on this. Good thing I have a recapping guide for this one. You will find this on the website. You will find a link to it in the description of this video. It will point you towards my Recap-A-Mac website, which for some unknown reason is going extremely slow at the moment, but I will try and remedy that later today. This is the Revision B board. Macintosh II Revision B. Now, for all I know, from Apple's point of view, it might be like Revision F or something like that, but I just call it Revision B because it's the second one that I'm aware of. These are really solid until you hit them with a bit of heat. Would post link to stuff when I'm in the garage. Come on, Jay. What? He's working on his lawnmower / tractor. Lawn tractor. What become? Okay, so this cluster of 3 capacitors has now fused themselves together, and they're hot. Ow. In the bin. There we go. Right. I think that's all the oh, one more. One little guy here. Let's see if we can protect this serial number. I don't want to burn the serial number. It's not how we do things here at Brankus Creations. Alright, okay, what have I got here? I ordered some 600 cups, $8 each. How many? 10,000 microfarad? Boy, they must be big. Or are they small? Stay still, you thing. I'll have to hold it down with a bit of tape. It's vexing me. Bye, Caden. Okay, thank you for joining. Farewell. Now you stay still, alright? Oh, hang on, I didn't get the ping, ping. I just suddenly realised how incredibly hungry I am. I want a pie. I want to eat a pie. Don't have a pie. Ah. Right. Oh, who's got a PET? I love PETs. Okay, right, I think that's it for the caps. Just while we're here, we're having a little journey around the board. Let's have a look at these guys here. What you have there is a sound chip. And then what you have over here is another sound chip. One for the left channel, one for the right channel. Same sound chip that you will find on a Macintosh SE30. And I think probably a 2X as well, but I've never worked on a 2X. Can you believe that? Never, ever worked on a 2X. That's why there is no recapping guide for a 2X on my website. Let's see how well these things clean up. Look at the traces. Look it. Look it. Okay. My normal trick for cleaning up these pads is a good sized dollop of flux, a modicum of flux, and a bit of heat, and a bit of fresh solder, and a little bit of circular rubbing here. Very, very gentle. We do not want to damage anything. We don't want to rip these pads off the board. We're just using heat, we're using the motion, we're using the flux, we're using the solder, and we're just gradually getting rid of all that blank gunk. And so what we end up with is we end up with a pad, a whole pad, covered in solder, looking like a nice little lozenge shape like that. That tells us that pad is ready to accept solder. Then we take the solder away and we leave it as just a nice fresh little tinned pad, all ready for a new component to go on. Really should have taken some of that solder off my iron before I wasted it on that flick there. Flick? That wick. Solder flick. Sometimes also called solder braid. Bob Ribble. Hello. He's in Queensland. For those who don't know, Queensland is the state directly north of the state I'm in. I'm in New South Wales. Queensland is above there. Queensland is the state that includes that little point at the top right hand of our country. And it is a very, very big state. And it is my understanding that you guys have a public holiday tomorrow. Would I be correct in saying that? Joe, welcome. How late are you? You are just over an hour late. An hour and 10 minutes late. We have been just waxing lyrical about the old Mac II here, talking about its strengths and weaknesses and its historical mark on the personal computing industry and all that sort of stuff, and we are dealing with a very, very nasty looking one here. Now, no, it's not as nasty as the SE30 you had that time, but we are looking at something that's going to require a significant amount of trace repair. So, I believe it is fixable, because you gotta believe. Just cleaning up these pads, getting ready for the new caps to go down. It's just one less job I have to worry about, then I'll move on to the trace repair. I'm not removing the axial capacitors at this stage, other than that one that I removed earlier, which is the little one, because they will still be okay. I'm going to replace them later on. I think they're just on here as like a filter capacity, so that'll be fine. They just tend not to go wrong. Did you find the PLA colour you needed? Not yet. So the link that you sent me, and thank you very much for that. That place, yes, they do specific colours, but they only do it for very significant sized production runs. So it's not just a matter of saying, hey, I want one roll of this colour. And certainly, as I understand it on the website, if you want a specific colour, you know, if you say to them, hey, I want this Pantone colour or whatever, you have to be prepared to buy lots of rolls. Not quite there yet. I do have to show you something that I worked on the other day, 3D printed, that I felt was the most useful thing I have made so far with my 3D printer. Forget about your mounting brackets, forget about your replacement legs for your keyboards, forget about all those things. I'm going to show you what I reckon is the most useful thing I've ever made from a 3D printer. I'm grabbing it now, I'm going to bring it in. Here it is. Three things, actually. It's not just one thing, but three things that I think are the most useful things I've ever made in 3D. Number one, a cap for an open corking container. So this is a little screw-on cap here so that you can seal these things up when you're finished using them. Seal it up, ready for use next time. That, I think, is one of the best things useful things I've ever made in 3D. Then, replacement spouts for a corking gun. 3D printed that. I also believe that is one of the most useful things I've ever made. Then, thirdly, this one looks like it's really, really kind of freaky, but this guy here. That there, I'll put it in front of my face, that little thing that looks like a gigantic screw, that is a cleaner for one of these. Put it in, screw, pull out whatever sealant might be left in there. Whee! So there we go. I went on a little bit of a little corking gun spree with 3D printing the other day, and I have to say, pretty happy with the end results. So, there we go. Okay, let me just check here. Which colour did I want? I just want something that matches the grey of the vintage Macs. Now, one of the problems that people always say is they say, oh, the beige. And it's like, no, not the beige, the light grey. So I have found some light greys, but they're still quite dark in comparison to the grey of the vintage Mac. So I want something that's not yellowy like the beige. I want something that is neutral but very light. So somewhere half between the grey I have and white. Somewhere halfway between the two. That's what I'm after. Okay, here we go. Yeah, now the screw thing, just be careful where you put it, because you don't want one of those embarrassing visits to the doctor with something like this. Just so. I may end up doing this with a slightly larger handle. It might make it a little bit easier to work with, but you know, in the meantime, pretty happy with that. I'll probably add all of these things to Thingiverse when I get around to it. Did I say it right, Dana? Did I say Thingiverse right? Alright, let's just keep cleaning this up. Taking way too long here. I'll never get to eat at the rate I'm going now. I had a piece of toast before I started this today, with Vegemite on it. Yum. Bit of Vegemite and a bit of cheese. Yum. Because as we all know, everyone loves Vegemite. I just dropped my solder wick. Everyone, without exception. Colour fab, they do custom copy on demand. Especially that to get to custom colour. Colour fab, is it? What was the one that you sent me, Thomas? Was that it? Colour fab? Because the link that you sent me, I did have a look, but as I say, they really weren't talking about it being like an easy thing to go and get specific colours made. It was, you know, they made it sound like it was kind of like a special order and you needed large quantities and, you know, inquire within type situation. RAL colours, not Pantone. What's RAL? What's RAL? I'm from the printing industry. I only know Pantone. And CMYK and RGB. And was it hue saturation brightness, HSB. These are nasty. You notice how nasty these are? Just got to keep at it. When they're really, really bad, when you end up with the crusty stuff on these pads being really, really thick and they're just not coming off, then I'll get out the blade and I'll scrape them off. But I don't think I'm going to need to for these ones. They are. I'm managing to sort of coax that black stuff off just using heat and flux and rubbing and solder. And then I'll just get the last off with the wick. Colour Fab was one of the links. Okay, cool bananas. Cool bananas. I'll have to check it again. Cool bananas. It's the thing that I found frustrating. I've bought a few spools of light grey, what do you call it? PLA filament. Now, this is just the way my brain works. Black, put my hand in the camera. Black, white, grey, light grey, dark grey. Now, what I'm finding very frustrating is whenever if you imagine that if you have black is 100%, white is 0%, and grey is 50%, so 50% black ultimately, that I consider to be grey. Then let's say light grey is say 25% black, dark grey is say 75% black, just for argument's sake. That's how I tend to think in colours. The light greys that I've found are about 50%. So I consider them just grey, not light grey. So when someone advertises a grey as light grey and then I get it and it's like 50% black sort of thing, if you were to look at it on a colour chart sort of thing and see what 50% black looks like, and they're about 50% black, I think that's not light grey, that's just grey. And I find that a little bit frustrating because you never know until you get the thing back, until you get it home to look at it. You got to, and sometimes you even need to print them because sometimes they do change colour when you print. But anyhow, it's not the end of the world. I'd just love to be able to print these replacement Mac things that I've been making in the original Mac colour. And that. And not even just Mac, I mean even things like the Sony screens and things like that, they were all in kind of a light grey. All of them. Okay. Right. All right. Good. Okay. I'm now understanding what RAL is. What does it stand for, just out of curiosity? Does anyone know what RAL stands for in terms of the colour? Yep, another one here. Look at that trace. Look at that one running its way down there. That is a nothing trace. If there is continuity on there, I will have flux on toast for lunch. Cleaning. Yeah, sorry, this is the boring part. This is me just cleaning. A little bit on the dull side, sorry. Yeah, board divider trace. Really annoying lookup. That's a good one. I like that one, Joe. I'm warm. Why am I warm? It's bloody autumn. It's only 20 degrees outside. It's certainly warmer in here. Maybe it's all the soldering iron, all that sort of stuff. Maybe it's all these flux fumes melting my brain. If you have a look at this, you can see all of that smoke going up to... Oh, no, you can't see it at all. If you look at this, you'll see all the smoke going up the top left there. And it's going up the top left because that's where my fume extractor is. It's pointing down on the board. And I know that the fume extractor does make a little bit of unwanted noise in the background of the audio, but it is just a necessary evil, I'm afraid. Oopsie. We have to think about our health when we're doing these sorts of things, because we want to be able to keep doing them for years to come. And really, smoke, this sort of smoky stuff, is not meant to be inhaled. I mean, that's a pretty stupid thing to say. Of course it's not meant to be inhaled. But then again, people do smoke cigarettes, so... Paint colour chart. I want to know what it stands for. Mark Purdy, hello, thank you for joining. So just a little recap for folks that might have just been joining recently. I'll just go and see what the numbers are like at the moment, because I haven't been really paying a whole lot of attention. Moving. We're sitting on about 51, so that's nice to be over 50. I always like it when there's more than 50 people here. Don't ask me why, but I sort of get a sense of achievement when it's over 50. So yeah, for people who have just dropped by recently, we're looking at a Macintosh II motherboard, or if you want to use the Apple parlance, the Logic board. And they essentially, that started off with their old compact Macs, where they had two boards inside them. one of them being the logic board and one of them being the analog board. It's the same as if you're working on laser printers. They have boards that they refer to as formatter boards. And you have little words for different things. So anyhow, logic board, motherboard, whatever you want to call it. This is one that has surface mount electrolytic capacitors on it. And those capacitors have leaked and so need to be replaced. And I am currently cleaning off the pads for when I put new capacitors on. And I'm doing that with heat. I'm doing it with fresh solder, and I'm doing it with flux. And as you can see, as I rub, gradually these pads, where you have these areas like here on the right where the solder's not sticking, as I just keep persevering and persevering, eventually solder sticks to the whole thing. And that's as we get rid of the gunk that was on the pad. And then we just take the solder and the last of that gunk off with some solder wick, like this. And then we are left with lovely shiny pads all ready for new components to go on. Now it's about getting that preparation done, getting your good prep done on the board that makes the job of putting the new caps on super easy. You're going to get nice, clean solder blobs. The Macintosh II is one of the boards that one of the reasons why I ended up making my own ultrasonic cleaner, because this one doesn't fit on those standard ultrasonic cleaners, the ones that you buy on eBay and stuff like that, or on AliExpress or Banggood or whatever. They have lots of ultrasonic cleaners that are in varying sizes, but because of the way they scale up, they sort of just scale up equally in the width, height and depth. They don't work for really long, thin things like a great big motherboard like this. So that's why I made my own ultrasonic cleaner, which is just here. Yes, thank you. It's my own joinery, and I use this for cleaning these great big boards. So inside it has. I don't know if I can just change over the camera very quickly so I can show people a little bit here of my ultrasonic cleaner. So yeah, you can see it there a bit. So inside here, I've got a mess of wires, but we basically have 8 ultrasonic transducers and 4 ultrasonic power supplies. Each power supply powers 2 inducers each, and I really should have opened that up because of the way those wires hang out. Never mind. If I can get it all back together, it'll be really good. There we go. Back there. I've got 2 big 240 volt AC fans here. I've got a little countdown timer that you can't see because the camera's not pointed at it, but a little countdown timer for switching it on. Yeah, allows me to just get these sorts of things really, really clean. And as I mentioned right at the beginning of the stream, in my last live stream I was working on a couple of boards, recapped them. At the end of the recapping they didn't work. Both of them went into the ultrasonic cleaners. Heat cleaner came out, worked perfectly. So ultrasonic cleaner, when you're working with vintage boards, old boards with corrosion, with leakage, ultrasonic cleaner is a really, really important thing to have. So we're getting down to, I think we've got maybe 1 or 2 more to clean here. 1, 2, 3. 3 more to clean. Won't take long then. There will be another one that I've missed. Always happens when I go to put the caps back on and I suddenly find one that I haven't cleaned. It's just par for the course. That's just part of a Brankus live stream. Okie dokie. Right. Let's get on to this cleaning here. I will be replacing this capacitor up here later. The one that I pointed to, I know you can't see. I want you to imagine a blue axial electrolytic capacitor of 220 microfarads, 16 volts. I need you to imagine one. Close your eyes and picture it. Just above where I'm working. And now what I want you to do is imagine that it's got a whole bunch of solder all over it now from me pointing at it with a soldering iron. Have you got it? You got that in your head? Did what you're imagining look like this? Well, that's what it looks like. Okay. Oh no, you do not want to run out of your Amtech NC599 V2TF. I've still got 2 tubes of it up in the house, 2 10cc tubes. I won't be buying the 30s anymore. I've just found I used to buy the 30s all the time. Then I got a batch of, when I ordered a 30, they came back and said, sorry, we don't have any 30s. Can we send you 3 10s? So yeah, sure, I don't care. They sent me 3 10s, and I actually found working with the 10cc syringe much easier. And yes, I go through them way quicker, but I just liked working with them. So I'm probably going to do it. I probably should change the description in my video. My apologies to folks who might have been clicking on links in my recent live streams and the links weren't working. That is because, for whatever reason, YouTube, I generally just copy it out from an old video and put it on a new video. And for whatever reason, recently, YouTube have been tacking on little unwanted invisible characters on the end of the URLs. So when you click on them, it has these sort of invisible characters on the end. So I've got to go back and look at all those old videos and start removing them. Start removing those extra characters so that people can actually use the links. Someone brought it to my attention just recently, said, hey, the link here doesn't work. I was like, oh, what's happened? I will remedy that situation very soon. Just ordered another 30cc. Yeah. You just got to have this stuff around. It is such good flux. I was recommended it by Lewis Rossman during his live streams. It was what he used. Now, what I then found was that it wasn't the easiest stuff to get hold of here in Australia. No one here sells it. I should probably start selling it, but anyhow. And so I have to buy it from the States, and that was getting to be quite expensive. So I looked into some local alternatives, and I did find some good fluxes. I found some fluxes that performed very well. The primary difference between the flux that I use, between this flux here and the one that I found that was quite good, is that the one that I found that's quite good, which is called Interflux, it's way stickier. Sticky. So when you get it on things, it's just super sticky. And it stinks. That's the other reason. Just cleaning off some of the gunk here. To look a little bit prettier. Let's get all this solder off the end of this capacitor that I put on there. There we go. Hard to get in Canada, that's a pain. Yeah, as I say, I mean, I can't buy it. I can't buy it locally here. I have to buy it from the States. But having said that, I mean, I haven't generally had any trouble. There are some things that I buy here locally. For example, my ultrasonic cleaning fluid, because of the size and weight of the bottles, and also because they are chemicals. Things like that can be quite difficult to ship. Most people in the States, from what I understand, most people using electronics for ultrasonic cleaning are using a product called Branson EC ultrasonic cleaning fluid. And I wanted to do some comparison between different ultrasonic cleaning fluids, so I actually wanted to try and get hold of some. It was just prohibitively expensive. I mean, seriously, it just was not worth me trying to get that stuff out here. And to my knowledge, no one sells it here. So yeah, I use stuff from a local company. I have tried another one called, what was it called? It was awful. Awful stuff. Can't remember what it's called. Ambacil. That's right, Ambacil. And I was awful. That was awful. It was sort of when I ultrasonically clean something with solder joints, whereas the stuff that I normally use, those solder joints come out shiny, they were coming out matte. So it was kind of like taking the top off. It's like corroding the top of the solder joints, and it just made the boards look awful when they came out. So, not for me, no sir. Right, I think that's all of the. Oh no, it's not. God, I told you, there's always one I forget. Or two, or three. I think this is the last one. Think it. C19. Hello, C19. Okay. So anyhow, the cleaner that I use is made by a company out here called Cleantech. They sell ultrasonic cleaners and ultrasonic cleaning fluids of all different types. They sell ones for cleaning metal, and they sell ones for cleaning plastics and all that sort of stuff. So they've even got one specifically designed for cleaning like aluminium or aluminum, as you guys say. But having said that, I generally recommend, as much as possible, try and keep aluminium or aluminum out of the ultrasonic cleaner for any extended period of time, because it does make it go black. It's just the way it reacts with the metal. With the little surface mount electrolytic capacitors, they've got a coating on them, so they tend not to. But when you have just a normal axial radial capacitor, the top of those, they're generally not coated, and they tend to go black in the ultrasonic cleaner, which is it's not very attractive. I don't think it's a problem, but it's just not very pretty. Aluminum. Right, that was the last one. Hey, Sean, has Sean arrived? Hello, Sean. Thank you for turning up. I got about halfway through your recent video before I had to come and do this morning. I had to go and do some prep for this, but your video just recently on the swap meet that you went to, I just got up to the part where you were looking at the second, what was it, sun station. Which I was just mega envious of the fact that you found those for a reasonable price. My goodness, you just don't get anything like that out here. You're going to get, if you want to get hold of something like that out here, you just got to be prepared to pay a fortune. Yeah. So anyhow, I was thoroughly enjoying. I didn't get a chance to finish, but folks, if you you're not allowed to watch it now. You have to wait until you finish watching my video. But jump across to Action Retro, and yeah, let me do this. Excuse me. Okay, so Sean, you are now a moderator for the stream, so you can post a link to that video you just did, if you would like. Right, now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of this stuff, and that is going to be scraping all of this corrosion off these traces and finding out which ones still go where they are meant to go. Now, we know that there are broken traces here because when I connected it up, it didn't work. And now we have to just do mass scraping to find out what works and what don't work. I do this so often, but for some reason the scraping is really grating on my nerves today. It's just the sound just seems more annoying than usual. So if it's the same for you, I apologise. I apologise today to you unreservedly. On mobile. How dare you, Sean? How dare you watch my live stream on mobile? Okay. Oh, I'm hooked. Okay, here we go. There's one of the problems with using sort of latex gloves while you're working on these things. You constantly get hooked on things. Right, so this is the trace that I was referring to here that goes, ooh, ooh, oh wow. Okay, here's fun. Here's some fun, my folks. This is going to be interesting. Let's move this out of the way. Let's move this out of the way. Need some Mozart. Right. Starts here. You see it? There. Runs underneath. corroded, 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 all the way along there. Now, this is the one that I said, if this one still made continuity, I would eat flux on toast. And I think my bet's fairly safe. We'll just expose a little bit here. We will grab the beepity beep beep machine, which for those who have not watched my live streams before is what I refer to my digital multimeter as. It is a Fluke 115 multimeter, which costs a silly amount of money, but I have never regretted it because it works really, really well. So we're going to start here. So this is going from there all the way to here. And what a surprise, no continuity. So I have had this before, and I've got to tell you what happened. I ran the trace underneath the RAM, so I didn't have to take the RAM slots off, but I ran a trace under the RAM, and I just stuck it down with some UV mask to hold it in place. And sorry, flying insect. While I was cleaning it up, I snapped it in half, and I had to do it again. And I have to tell you, on that particular occasion, I swore just a little. Just a little. Tiniest little swear word. I said something like, I don't know, botheration. Or maybe I said, Jiminy Crickets. Right, so I'm going to flip over to the other side. I'm going to clean out this little via. So this is a via here. It goes through to the other side of the board, and it is filled with solder, and I want that solder gone. But if I put a soldering iron there, I'm going to melt the goodness gracious out of those, what do you call these things? RAM things? RAM holders? So I am going to suck the solder out of it from the other side. And I think it is this one here, and I think it's even corroded on this side. It is. It is corroded on this side. So this is going to be a fun one. Having done this before, I know what needs doing, but it's still not going to make it any less enjoyable. Yes, I know Dana has said there, Bruce doesn't swear. See, Dana knows me quite well. We've, you know, we've had lots of Skype chats, and we just sit there and chat and chat and chat, and he knows that I never swear. Come on, solder. There we go. So I saturated the wick with solder there because the truth is that solder likes to hang out with solder. So add a little bit more and the solder says, hey, I want to be part of that fun. Right, I think I can just poke through the top of that. The reason why it hasn't got sucked up is because it's all crusty. And when it's crusty like that, it doesn't go molten, and so that's not going to work. Because my gloves are getting sticky. Okay, quick answer to the question. Fizzbin. Hello, by the way. I don't think I've said hello to you today. Is there a problem with cleaning analog board power supplies in an ultrasonic cleaner? Short answer is no. Long answer is sometimes. If you're dealing with, say, for example, a Macintosh Classic Plus, something like that, you will have a speaker on it. You've got to take that speaker off before you put it in an ultrasonic cleaner, because speakers do not like being submerged in water. So that's number one. You know, if you're dealing with like something like a speaker which absolutely cannot get wet, you've got to take that off. Another is that power supplies will sometimes have things like either, you know, wound transformers, or they might have things like solenoids which are encased. You know, they might have a solenoid or a relay or something which is encased in a little plastic container. And sometimes water will get into those cases nice and easily, but get dried out a lot harder. So what I would say is that you need to kind of be aware of what's going on the board, what's there, as to whether you might need to approach it differently. So for example, I think it's the Macintosh II SI has a little solenoid on the power supply. What I do is I take the top of that solenoid off, the cap, the outside cap. So it gets submerged, it gets ultrasonically cleaned, I put it in an isopropyl alcohol bath, then I put it in the oven. When it's going in the oven, it's exposed. It doesn't have any trapped water in there. So you might want to, with a power supply, let it dry for a bit longer. You know, there's nothing wrong with letting it dry for a few hours before you use it. And so when I do it in a little oven here, it's a little toaster oven, very specifically made for this purpose. I have it set on probably about 70 degrees Celsius, something like that, 60 to 70 degrees to dry. Probably closer to 60, because sometimes at 70 some plastics can go a bit funky. And then, you know, I just run that and let it dry for like an hour typically. So yeah, so essentially yes, you can do power supplies and ultrasonic cleaners. Sometimes you have to. I have had some classics, Macintosh Classic analog boards, who of course have terrible leakage from the radial caps. They just leak all over the place. They make a right mess. So I have to get my drill out, screw out the rivets of the speaker, take the speaker off, ultrasonically clean them, dry them, then put the speaker back on with a couple of pop rivets. So, okay, right. So now we're going to move on to this thing here, and we're going to work out how we're going to fix this. So we're running along there, I'm just going to make sure I'm following this right. Yeah, cool. So once we get to the outside here, I can start attaching it to the copper. I know, copper. And we're going to clean this up as best we can. I mean, look at this. Look how spotty it is. Spotty. There's a nice big solder ball there. Let's take him off. Shall I take him off? Nope. Off. There we go. Just these boards are spiky. Doesn't matter about exposing the copper on these, the ones that aren't actually corroded. I'm going to put solder on top of them, so effectively tin them. That's going to protect them, make sure that they don't get corroded. Or of course, if I don't use solder on them, I can always use a bit of UV mask over top of them afterwards. But at this stage, we're just assessing this situation, assessing. And the thing is that you can have things that look absolutely horrendous, and then you scrape them and you see all this nice clean copper and you think, wow, wasn't that bad after all. Good to expose it though, good to get all that black stuff off, then coat it with some solder, tin it, protect it, make it last longer. Because we don't want to just fix this, we want to try and future-proof it a little, you know, we want to make sure we can get a few more years out of this. Oh, I've got to smash that like button from Dana. Thank you. Smash that like button. Or anyone who may not know the reference to the smash that like button was, I think, actually Dana who first said it. And Dana does stuff. We were talking about the idea of you know, some of the YouTube content creators where you go onto their videos and they go, you know, hey, what's up, guys? And that sort of thing, and the concept of them saying here, You know, thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button. And then for whatever reason, it then turned into smash that like button. That was the bit I added to it. That sort of started off with my, I think probably with my Christian Bale Batman. Hey there, I'm Batman. For anyone who's watched those Christian Bale Batman movies. That's kind of how he talks when he's Batman. I found it a little bit comical when I've watched some of those movies. I was like, wow, Christian Bale's talking really funny. Oh, this is the boring stuff, of course. Still trying to fix the flopping thing. Now flopping, flop, 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 flop. Yeah. I'm just trying to remember flopping. I mean, flopping is usually power related, isn't it? I assume you've checked the voltage from the floppy connector. For anyone who might be wanting to test the voltage on those compact Macs that have a floppy connector, you can test the 5 volt and 12 volt output just from the exterior of the machine without having to open them up by using pins 6 and 8 or something, can't remember exactly, of the floppy connector. You just connect the negative to, you know, just some of the shielding on the outside of the board. You poke the positive, get a paper clip or something, poke it in pin 6, I think, of the floppy connector, and wire that up to your, or connect it up to your multimeter, and see what you get. And if you're not getting 5 volts and you're not getting 12 volts, you've got a problem. If it's only a little bit out, you can adjust it, because there is actually a little potentiometer on the board that allows you to do minor adjustments to voltage. Oh, excuse me. Oh, come on, I've already worn a Batman mask in one of my live streams. I did it in my soldering techniques live stream from, I don't know, probably a year ago or something like that. I do have a Batman mask that I can wear. I will wear one if you ask. I've got 15,000 fans now. I have to appease them. I have to do what they tell me to do. Oh. Voice changer in his suit. I like that. Tractor assembled. Tomorrow add gas and hope it doesn't explode and actually works. Awesome. I would love you to start it up now, but I do appreciate it's probably a little bit late for something where you are. Because although here it's Sunday, it's mowing time. I know there it's Saturday night, quite late. Bruce's last name is Rain, close to Wayne, 1 letter difference. I do get a lot of comments about that. There's a musician out here, a guy called James Rain. His name's spelt different to mine. It's Reyne, and a lot of the time, you know, sort of like people might go, "Oh, are you any relation to James Rain?" And it's like, well, it's spelt differently, so probably not. And then they sort of say to me, "Oh, bet you get that all the time." And it's like, well, I do get it sometimes, but I don't get it anywhere near as much as I get the Batman. I get the old Batman all the time. I've probably told this story on a live stream before, but I actually purchased a DVD or a Blu-ray or something from a company, and when it arrived, I opened up the packaging and found a little photocopied image of the bat logo being projected up onto the clouds. And I thought to myself, aha, someone noticed. Right, I'm dousing this in flux now, and we're going to get some solder, and we're going to try and clean these traces up, and once again try and get an idea of which ones are really, really bad, because they will end up with the gaps on them. So just getting my solder here and just giving this all a gentle rub, all of these traces I've exposed. We're doing two things here. We are tinning them. We are also cleaning them a bit as well. I want to try and make them a little bit nicer, and then we'll go over this with my solder wick, my solder John Wick. I saw a little bit of John Wick 3 the other day, not all of it, just a little bit of it, and it looked really stupid. I loved John Wick 1. I kind of like John Wick 2, but it had definitely lost the charm of the first one. And then, yeah, and the third one seemed like it was getting positively silly. One of the things you need to be very careful with solder wick if you're using it is getting it stuck on the board. See, that's soldered on there. If I gave that a yank, I would just tear that pad off. So really important that if at any time you get feel any resistance from the solder wick, don't yank it. Go back, just don't pull on it at all. Go back with the soldering iron, melt it, make sure that she's not soldered to the board anymore, and then lift it away. And other important tips from Brankus Creations. If anyone's ever wondering what the story behind Brankus is, that's one of my most intelligent moments. It's a business name that I came up with. A number of reasons why I chose it. But I just love the fact that I chose a name that only people who study Greek mythology know how to pronounce. I just wasn't using my head that day. That was definitely one of my stupider moments where I went, oh man, look at this one. Look at this one. Oh, okay, and oh, look, and the .com's available, and the .com.au is available. Oh, let's go with this one. And then, you know, all of a sudden, is that Branches? Is that Branches Creations? Brankus. Okay. Bruce's finest hour. Hello, friends. Okay. Oh, there's a little chat going on here. Oh, Steve. Hello. Welcome to the live stream. And Michael Kirshner. Hello from Vienna. Hello from Sydney. Sydney. Bruce should wear a leather mask. But no, probably not. Probably not. Right, okay, here we go. Okay. Yes, indeed. Sorry, I'm just reading some of this silly chat. I'm not mentioning all of it because some of it is very unrelated to what I'm actually doing, but it's still making me chuckle. Yes, I do need more units of flux than what I'm doing at the moment. Okay, and Broncos Creations. Yeah, I can understand why you would think that. Because I do slur because I'm an Australian. G'day, how you going? All right? Yeah, good, thanks. I've always loved the Australian greeting where we say, how's it going, all right? I just love the fact that we provide the answer as well as the question. It's essentially saying, when I say how's it going, I do not want a complicated answer. I'm turning it into a yes-no. How's it going all right? And then you can say yes, no. So in other words, what we're saying is, we're asking it as a pleasantry. We don't actually want to know if you're all right. Or we actually don't want to know how you are. We want to move on. Okay, so now I've exposed so much of a lot of this ugly trace. It's still actually quite intact in a lot of places. So what I might do, just grab my beepity beep beep machine and see what the continuity is like along here. Just going to clean it up a little bit because it's covered in gunk. My gloves are starting to get a little on the sticky side, so I might swap them over. I use latex gloves mainly because I have a lot of trouble finding nitrile gloves. I don't have a latex allergy. A lot of people have to use nitrile because they have a latex allergy, but I don't, so I can use latex no problem. The nitrile gloves are definitely stronger, but they're not as stretchy. And a lot of the nitrile gloves, well, all of the nitrile gloves I buy, I haven't been able to find any that are powdered on the inside. And I've got great big fat hands, so when I buy them, I have a lot of trouble getting my hands in them unless they're powdered. Whereas these latex ones are lightly powdered, so I can get them on nice and easily with my fat hands. Fat hands. No, yeah. So Dana's getting very familiar with some of the Australian speak, which is the yeah. Yeah, how's it going? It's funny, isn't it? Because that's a very Australian thing to say. I know, as opposed to how is it going or how are you doing? But how is it going? Yeah, that's very, very common here. How's it going? How's it going? Yeah, look, if you get, sorry, just answering here to Mac Machine 95, if the battery damage is bad enough, I generally just recommend people don't even try. This one here has, has enough kind of intact that it's I think it is very salvageable. But I've had some, battery damage ones come to me where it's just like, no, there's just no chance here. I could sit here. Because the thing is that, like, I'm not going to just repair things for free, you know what I mean? I have to recover the costs of the hours that I spend repairing things. And if I look at a damaged computer and I count up, there's a break there. It's not getting through. You can't hear it, sorry, the beep's a long way away. The fluke doesn't beep very loud, but I think there's a break there too. So I'm going to run a trace. I think once we get past here, we're pretty good. So I'm going to run a trace repair from probably around about here. It's going to go all the way along here, all the way along there, and then it's going to go underneath this RAM, like that. So it probably makes more sense that I start it from this end. So I'll put the wire down there. Now this is the trickiest part, is actually getting the wire underneath those RAM slots. That's the part that is the most annoying. The most just annoying. The wire I'm going to use is 34 AWG, American wire gauge. It's a size where it's nice and thin, but it's still reasonably robust. Get a nice long piece here, because we're actually travelling quite a long way. Now, I guess I'd probably try and feed it through this way. How's it going? All right. How's it going? How you going? We say both. Okay. Incidentally, Mac Machine 95, in terms of the corrosion in the case, If it's all that, you know, RF shielding around the inside, just throw it away. You know, I hate RF shielding. I'd rather not have RF shielding at all. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, I've got a reasonable way there before I hit something. There we go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Might have to start running tweezers now. How far did we get? We're getting close. This must be tedious to watch. I know if I was watching someone else do this, it would just be so tedious. Yay, that wasn't too bad, was it? Right, so we're under the RAM slots. So I'm essentially just bypassing this heavily corroded area here, rather than actually cleaning it up. I'm going to clean it up, obviously, in the ultrasonic cleaner. Most of it's going to get washed away by the ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll just leave our wire behind. So, and then I will stick the wire down once we've done all this. So I need to now poke this wire through the hole. I bent the end. What a klutz. What a klutz. Struggling here. I'm at a really bad angle is my problem. There we go, that was a better angle. Because I have things, you know, I've got the microscope in front, I've got the fume extractor, you know, you got all these things floating around. It makes it quite hard to get things at the angle you want. So, oh come on, I can't see you. Where are you? There you are. All right, right. So, extremely disappointed. You're not removing all the slots to clean and run that wire. Well, you know what, Jay? In this instance, I'm just going to have to live with your disappointment because I am not removing those slots. Not on your bloody life. Under any circumstances. So, as long as that's clear. Alright, I'm going to anchor it in on this side. And we are going to need to run it up here a little bit because this this trace here isn't too crash hot either. So we're just going to clean this up. Why does only that one single trace rot under the slots but none of the others do? Well, this is what I was sort of mentioning before, I think possibly before you were on. So one thing to understand about, you know, corrosion is that having a current running through something can actually increase corrosion. There's scientific reasons for it, and I've read about them and stuff like that, but I can't remember any of that stuff because I've got a head like a sieve. But, you know, you can accelerate corrosion by running a current through something. Now, I think that particular trace has current running through it from the batteries. So, no current running. So, you know, they'll all have current running through them when the computer's on. But when the computer's off, there are a handful of traces that have current running through them from the batteries, from the battery backup process. And I think that accelerates the corrosion process. That is my theory. I am not a chemist. I am not a chemist. I don't understand, you know, I don't have huge understandings of chemistry and things like that other than fairly basic stuff. But I think that is what is going on. Because as I did actually mention at the beginning of the live stream, I have done this before with exactly the same trace damage. So, come on, man. It's not just coinky-dink. So there we go. There's our first trace stuck down. We've taken this long to actually... I called this one Repairing Traces on a Mac II, and I've just started my first trace repair. Sorry, everyone. Right, so we are now connected up here, to there. And then I'm going to bring this across, and I want to bring it across reasonably tightly. I don't want this wire to be kind of floating around too much. Oh man, focus, that's better. See how much better it is when it's focused. So I want to push this up here. I wonder if I can just get a little bit of solder on it there to hold it up there. Can I get it through without melting things? No. Let's try a different tip. What's my favourite tip? What I always talk about, how much I love conical tips. Yes. Let's get into a bit of conical action. Okay, where is it? There it is. Okay, swapping tips here. Swapping them while they're hot, because this is a T12 soldering iron, uses T12 tips. Hakko FX951, one of the great advantages with these is you can swap the tips while they're hot. Because only the end of them gets hot, so you can hold them at the part that doesn't get hot. Very, very handy. Just checking. Not conical. Yes, conical. And this is why I'm using it. It's a bent conical, so it does have a bit of flatness on the end there, but I can fit that through there, hopefully without melting anything. I am going to enlist the assistance of some flux. There we go, there's some flux. And we'll get some solder on the end of my iron, and we'll just see if we can... Oh geez, come on, let's get this without... Oh man, my hand is so freaking steady, but under the microscope it always looks like I'm shaking like a drunkard. There we go. I think that's good enough. I think that will hold it pretty much just a little bit higher, so that it's kind of a bit more on track with where the original trace is. So let's run that across there. So it is, we're going to have to join it up. I'm going to join it up there. So it's the middle one out of these two, the ones that have been tinned, exposed and tinned. It's the middle one, it's this one here. So I'm going to put that there. So we're going to just get an anchor here, and then that will make life a lot easier for us. So let's get rid of this stupid conical tip. Sorry if I scared anyone with that outburst. It did its job, but now it's gone because I don't like it. Just can't get enough heat where I want generally. It's all about the heat. Right. Need some tweezers. Want them to be good tweezers that meet well in the middle and aren't covered in that yellow gunk from removing the caps. What about these? Do these meet in the middle? Yeah, these seem pretty good. Right. I am coming at this at the whole wrong angle. Should I flip the board around? I'll flip the board around. No, I won't. I will flip the board around, but not yet. If I do that. Go quiet when I'm concentrating, don't I? Right, now, might look like an absolute dog's breakfast, but once I get some flux on there and clean it up, it should be fine. Oh no! Don't do that, you twerp. Easy, tiger. I'm making it look like I've never done this before, so sorry about that. Peter, welcome. Yes, I caught a tiny bit of your... I arrived at your little live video last night as well, Peter. I arrived just in time for it to say, the video is finished. So, let's continue along here. For people who have watched me repairing tracers before, one of the things that I do, with no real logic behind it, is I like to put these on and follow the trace that was under it rather than just running it over the top, just from point A to point B. I do all these little curves and stuff. And you might just say, well, why? And I don't know, I just like the look of it. So I bend these up, make it so they follow the original contour of the trace. Yoink. Often use 2 tweezers when I'm doing this, so I can get nice little sharp bends like that. Thing is that when I do these sorts of trace repairs like this, where I follow the contour, you can often look at these afterwards and not even realise that there's a trace repair being done. That is a victory, my friends. Alright, now this just goes straight for a bit. So what I'll do with this now is I will solder it down at the next curve, and then I'll go back and solder a bit, just a few little notches along the way. Just kind of like little tacks. Tap, tap, tap. It is now the 3rd one down. Oh, no it isn't. It's the 3rd one down, and then it's the 2nd one down. Okay. Oh, stick down, you silly thing. Right on that curve, there's actually a break in the trace, so there's nothing to solder onto. And I might need a little bit more solder on the end of my iron as well, because I think I'm soldering with virtually no solder. I'm good at making excuses, aren't I? That's better. Stop it. There we go. Whoopsie, I'm a little bit out of camera, sorry folks. Moving along. Come on. Come on. Thank you. More flux. Right, needless to say, I'm not really seeing the chat at the moment. I will look in a moment, but while I'm doing this, I'm not really afforded much of an opportunity to look at what people are saying. But I will look afterwards. And keep those chats coming. And just remember, if you're ever wanting to ask me a question, if you ask it and I don't answer, I'm not ignoring you. I do miss things on the chat. And so I need to, if you put the @Brankus, so at the beginning it will highlight as bright orange or something on my screen here, or sort of whatever colour it is, sort of pinky colour. And of course, if you do a super chat, you'll really get my attention. You might even get a thank you. So this is enamelled wire. The wire actually has a coating on it, a plastic coating, so that if I do run a wire across the board, it's not going to cause an accidental short. But because it is such a thin coating, it comes off very, very easily, just with a little bit of heat. And so I can do this. Whew. Make it look so easy. Oh, thank you. Alright, let's get a little bit of flux there. And a little bit more solder. And we'll stick this down. And this will be the end of this particular trace repair. It won't be the last, but it's the end of this particular one. I'll just do a bit of back. Thank you. Right. Oh, too far one way, too far the other. There we go, that'll do. Okay, let's get some little joins across here, just some little tacks. Gonna need some flux. So the one thing I absolutely do not want to happen now is for this trace, or this wire, to get broken where it travels underneath the RAM. Because that would be bad. So I just need to be super careful and gentle. Oh, look what I did. Look what you made me do. It's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? Look what you made me do. Okay. I'm not going to solder this all the way, but I am going to do a few tacks along the way just so that it's a little bit more robust. Right, let's get some flux along there. Let's clean that up a bit. Okay, I think we're pretty good. I'm just going to snip the end of this and just tidy it up a bit. That's another thing that I regularly get comments from people about. They say, you shouldn't snip the end of the wire with a blade like that. And I say, okay. Don't care, don't care, don't care. There we go. All right, so there is one great big long snaky trace repair. SC30 bought along with you. Oh, good on you, Joe. That's what I like to hear. Had no sound, recap and clear, and boom, sound works. That's what we always want. That is the wonderfully victorious thing when you're doing those those recap jobs where something doesn't work, you do the recap, and bang, it works. So let's continue along here. over here, I'm not sure if there are any. I mean, we've got a break here on this wire here, but I'm not concerned about this one just yet. This should not stop it from actually working. This will stop it from powering up from the keyboard, but it shouldn't stop it from working at all. So let's have a look here. Let's just clean these ones up a bit. Because once again, I see corrosion here, but I don't think the traces are actually shot. What about this one? Got to do this one too. But that one's remarkably good. I've seen way worse than that one. Get off, you adhesive, you. That's good. And 28 megs RAM and Mac OS 8, Mac OS 8 on an SE30. My goodness, that must crawl. So, do tell me here, Mac Machine 95, what motivated you to put OS 8 on it rather than perhaps a more suitable operating system in terms of matching the speed of the CPU, such as a 7.1? What was it about System 8 that you wanted to be running, to have that running on your SE30? I assume you had a particular thing you wanted to do with it in mind, and I'd just be curious to know what that thing was. Oh, excuse me, my tummy's rumbling. So it's time for food. Whoops, what have I done? Just clicked something I shouldn't. More flux, more flux, more flux, more flux. Flux and capacitors, flux capacitors. Hey, that's from the movie. Oh, man. Okay, sorry for the silence here, folks, just concentrating. Just trying to continue cleaning up these as best as I can. My really old golden triangles because of just marine cars on the Mac 2 I was using on the Mac Plus 7. Yes, I generally, so this is just me, and this is my purposes, it doesn't suit everyone else. But for me, when I'm dealing with a 68K Mac, let's say 68000 or 68020, the highest I would ever go is System 7.0.1. Get a lot of new features with System 7, so it's even if it's 701, there's a lot more. I mean, you don't have to use a bloody font DA mover, you can just drop fonts into the system. A lot of improvements there. So 701 generally, or 6, if I'm using like a Mac Plus, System 608 all day long. I'm not even going to bother really putting 7 on that. On an SE30, I would typically run System 7.1. on the old 040s, like you know, I don't know, Quadra 700, LC 475, Quadra 950, whatever those sort. I would probably run 7.5, 0.3 on those. Once again, these are not necessarily like, oh, this is what you should do. They're just what I do. They're sort of, I just find in the instances that I've just given you, they are the best functionality, performance, balance sort of situation. Oh wow, what, Jay? Isn't it Saturday night there, and you're going to bed? What on earth is going on? All right, well, what I think I'm going to do at this stage, I'm probably... Good night, by the way. Thanks for joining. I've got this little guy over here to fix, which is very, very common. That's almost definitely broken. They are almost always broken between there and there. I'll just check with the beepity beep machine. They may not be, but they usually are. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, you can't hear it. It's very quiet. Oh, wow. Still got continuity. All I have to do is clean them up. Don't need to run new traces. Happy days. Happy days. Oh, and Jay, if you're still there, when you try out the trailer tomorrow, if it doesn't work, can you please send us a video of the tears? Tractor mower? Mower tractor? Peter, I do sometimes use the wick to remove the mask, but I will usually remove the mask with the scalpel. The wick, I find it tends to just work as like a very gentle abrasive and helps to just remove any additional crud that might be on these traces, and just leave me with a nice, neat, sort of tinned trace there. With ones like this where the mask is so thin, I could definitely scrape off the mask with wick, but I do prefer to do it with the scalpel. Take the mask off and then just use the wick. I generally take the mask off, then I put a whole big blob of solder over it, and then I go back over it with the wick to remove the excess solder and just leave me with nice, neat, tinned pads or traces. So I am actually going to do something a little bit crazy here, because that's just me. That's what they call me, Crazy Brankus. Just making that up. They of course don't call me that. I am going to put the caps on and just try it out. Then I'll probably finish up the stream after that. I have been going for quite a while. I am getting a little on the hungry side. We may have to come back to it another day, because one with this level of damage isn't necessarily just going to be a one sitting job. But we will put the caps on, we'll test it out and just see if we get any more than we did before. And for those that weren't there at the very beginning, I basically connected power up to it and I got nothing. For people who weren't here watching at the time, these computers require batteries to switch on under normal circumstances. However, I have got a power supply that I use which bypasses the need for the batteries. So I'm not really too concerned about whether I put batteries on it yet. This is really just going to be about seeing if I can get a chime out of it. We will see. We will see. Okay. I need to put a little bit of UV mask on this before I put new caps on it. That's why I'm cleaning it up. I want to just get all of the gunge and gunk off so that the UV mask will adhere to the board nice and neat. It's a nice strong adhesion. So there's using a bit of isopropyl alcohol there, 99.997 or something isopropyl alcohol. I don't know how they come to that figure, but it's the figure that they quote. And I'm just going to paint over this before I put the caps on, because I would like these things to be painted over before I put the caps on rather than after. Doing a terrible job of painting today. My inner artiste must still be asleep. So yes, we've been hearing reports of some of the beige G3s requiring recapping, which of course is a little bit disturbing. We know electrolytic caps have a limited lifespan, but you know, we've all been focused on these 68K Max really. We don't want to be having to deal with, I don't know, the PowerPC ones having problems as well. But it looks that way. I have recapped. Oh, geez, have I recapped the G3 before? So I've got a desktop G3 and a beige one. I may have just recapped the desktop one just for the fun of it, because that's what I do. I recap things. If I run out of things to recap, I'll have to find something. Certainly not running out of things to recap these days. Okay, so I'm plugging in my UV laser, pew pew, and I am going to dry off this UV mask with my UV laser. So I'm just hitting it with a nice little concentrated burst of UV light here. You can of course dry it under sunlight, or you can use other UV lamps. Good night, moth. Okay. Let's find the guy responsible for these crappy caps and turns publicly flogging him with a spiked leather strap. It's yeah, it is a bit of a pain. The thing we just have to keep reminding ourselves is that, you know, at the time that these things were made, no one would think that anyone would want to be collecting these things. You know, computers have always been on this kind of exponential growth of, you know, greater speed, smaller size, greater capacity, you know, sort of greater functionality. They've just always been heading that way. And so if you were involved in making computers at the time, you would just be like, why would anyone want to hang on to something older and slower when they can get something newer and faster? What possible rationale could you have for that? Now, of course, for me, you know, growing up with these things, I love sitting in front of these old operating systems. I get a warm, fuzzy feeling when I sit in front of like System 7 or System 6 and I look at the windows and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just a lovely feeling of nostalgia that I get when I'm working with them. Or if you're playing an old game, you know, I used to love playing games I'm on. I used to have a Power Tower Pro, Power PC, Power Tower Pro, and when I got that computer, I'd literally just taken it home or something, and I was like, oh, I need to get a game to play on this. I think it was that computer. And I went to a store that was essentially a PC. They had PC games, virtually no Mac games. But I did actually find a Mac version in there of a game called Zork Nemesis. Now, obviously, everyone knows the Zork games that have been around for a really long time, but this was Zork Nemesis. So it was sort of a 3D, immersive Myst-style game where you go around solving puzzles and stuff like that. And I loved it. I still love that game. I can sit down and just play that anytime. And in actual fact, just the other day, an eBay auction came up for 2 of the books for that I've never had. Mine basically came with a little teeny weeny little booklet and the CDs inside, nothing else. This one, it was like a full guidebook. And I just saw it come up on eBay, and it was a bit expensive, so I made offer and he accepted it. It's like, bang, so that's coming next week. So I'm really looking forward to that. For me, that's going to be a great little bit of nostalgia. How long per side do you clean your boards in the ultrasonic cleaner? That's a very good question. I clean them. It does depend on the state of the board. This one here that has all of this horrible corrosion, this one will probably spend 20 minutes on the bad side and maybe 15 on the good side. Maybe even 25 to 30 minutes even, possibly maybe. If it's something that's nowhere near as bad, a more modern board, like a classic that may not have that really crusty sort of corrosion, that one probably about 15 to anywhere between sort of like 7 and 15 minutes, I suppose, probably per side. If I'm working on a modern board like a MacBook Pro or something like that, or something like this, probably only like 5 to 7 minutes a side, something like that. When I'm building things, for instance, I build SCSI 2 SDs here. When I'm building those, I'm just getting flux off them. I'm not trying to clean corrosion or anything off them, just flux. For those there, just 5 minutes aside. So yeah, it does vary based on the level of gunge on the board. So this one here, this one's going to spend some quality time in there, I can tell you that. All right, let's start getting some caps back on the board, shall we? Going to need a recapping guide, because I don't memorize all of these. I memorize some of them, but not all of them. And this one in particular has quite a lot of caps on there, so I'm going to have to refer to my guide, recapamac.com or recapamac.com.au, whichever one works for you. That's where you'll find my website that has a whole series of recapping guides, including a guide for this particular computer, which is the Mac II Revision B. And I am now just in the process of finding that in my notes here. That's the 2VI, Apple's most awesome computer. Power Mac 7300, did that once. Tell you what, if anyone sends me a 7300 recap, I'm going to have to charge twice as much, because there are so many caps on that thing, and they're on both sides of the board as well. I'm struggling here. Where is it? LC475, LC2, Classic. Am I missing a page here? 2FX, portable, 2CI, SE30. Oh, here we go. Mac 2 power supply pins. Mac 2 Revision B. God, that only took me. It was like the last one I looked at. Does the size of the board have any bearing on how long you clean it? No, it doesn't. And that's because the ultrasonic cleaners are designed based on the amount of ultrasonic cleaning for the volume of water in there. So it doesn't matter how much stuff you put in there, it's how much water is in there. So this one here that I've got uses 8 transducers, and it's specifically designed for the amount of water that goes in this tank. And my smaller one over there has 4 transducers, again specifically designed for a certain amount of power output based on the amount of water in there. So it's not how much stuff you put in there, it's how much water is in it, how much liquid is in it. And so this will clean efficiently all over the board based on the amount of sort of transducer power in the ultrasonic cleaner. Like the old games, me too. I'll tell you the other game that I can just sit down and play anytime, and that's Civilization 1. Now, I know Civilization 2 was a little bit better, and it had things like diplomats and stuff like that, but I love the old Civilization 1 on the Mac. I love playing it. Love it. Alright, so we have... I'm not going to, as I mentioned to you before, I'm not going to be doing these, what do you call them, these axials just yet. Apart from that one little axial just up here, I'm going to do that one first. That was a 10 microfarad 16 volt. So let's grab a 10 microfarad 16 volt. This is why I need to keep a few of these larger ones, because I can't put the little ones on this. So 10 microfarad 16 volts goes around the way there. That way. It's the one on the left, so it's this guy here. This guy here on the left, 10 microfarad, 16 volts. So the original one that was in it was an axial capacitor. I'm replacing it with a tantalum. I could actually replace it with an axial because I have them. I do actually have 10 microfarad, 16 volt axial electrolytic capacitors, but I am going to stick this guy on it. As you can see, it's significantly smaller than the cap that was on there. I've never played Civ 1. I'll have to pick a machine for it. Yeah, look, this is the amazing thing about Civilization. From version 1, it was there. You know, okay, they improved it. They might have added stuff to it, but essentially, the awesome gameplay was there from version 1. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever played Civilization 1 on a Win or DOS machine. The gameplay was there, but the graphics were really, really blocky. Whereas Civilization 1, by the time it got released on the Mac, the graphics were way better than they were on Windows. You know, much more refined, you know, higher resolution, much better representation of things. So when you're actually playing Civilization 1, playing it on the Mac, as far as I'm concerned, is the best experience. Don't know what it was like on the Amiga, I've never played it, but certainly the Mac, the graphics, absolutely smashed the graphics on the DOS version. So yeah, playing Civ 1 on the Mac, best way to play it. And that's the truth. So we have a grand total of 13 47 microfarad capacitors. So let's not lose count. Where am I going to put these caps so they don't get stolen by the fairies? There we go. Let's put them there. I grabbed 4, okay? I grabbed 4. So if there's any less than 4 at the end, we know that they've been stolen by the capacitor fairies. 47616, you can see that there on the top of the cap. It's a Chemet capacitor. I am using Chemet capacitors. I used to use it, what is it, AVX or something they were, which were made in, I think, the Czech Republic. These are made in Mexico, I think, from memory, these AVX ones. They are a very reputable brand of capacitor, the old Chemet. And that is one of the reasons why I use them. The reason why I changed brands was very, very simple. I started having trouble getting the other ones. Then once I changed over to Chemet, the one thing I really like about them is they have the voltage written on them as well. The AVX ones that I used before, they had the capacitance on them, but they didn't have a code for the voltage on them, and I find that annoying. These ones do have a voltage code on them. Civ 3. I love the Aussie way of saying numbers with teen in them. 14. Oh, you mean 13, 14, 15. Yeah. Well, it's actually, there are often times when the way I pronounce numbers is confused. I did a Macintosh Plus video. One of my very first kind of YouTube videos released upon the world, you might say. And it was me just doing a teardown of a Mac Plus. And not a lot of substance in it. And it was, you know, it was a bit of adventure for me. In that I said, this computer's from 1984, or 1986, sorry. So this computer's made in 1986. And I had all these people saying, you got the date wrong, it's not 1996, it's 1986. And it's like, because I say 1986, not 1986, 1986. You know, it's like just the way I slur it in Australian. And it's like I was saying 1984, but it sounded to you like I was saying 94. I used to have, I don't know where they all went, but I used to have so many Mac Pluses a long time ago, like in the early 90s. I don't know where I got them from. They were probably stupidly cheap. People were probably giving them away, I don't know. But I had Mac Pluses all over the place. And in my house, I had them all networked together with Local Talk, or Phone Net, whatever I was using. I can't remember what I was using. One or the other. I had one right next to the telephone, because this obviously predates, you know, sort of mobiles and or cell phones and stuff. And so I had a Mac Plus set up on the table where the phone was, and where the speaker was, I had actually drilled little holes so the sound came out a lot better. And then I used some software that was a phone directory tool, so I used that for storing the phone numbers. But what was really cool about that software is you could press a button, and it would emit the touch tones of that number. So if I wanted to ring someone up, I could just pick up the phone, because this was an old rotary dial phone, it wasn't a push button one. I could pick up the phone, go to the software, say I want to dial that number, press it, and it would go boop, 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 you know, and I would just hold the phone next to the speaker, and it would dial the number. So that was a nice little bit of fun from back then. Way too much spare time on my hands back then. Okay, let's keep moving and keep capping. Cap. Yeah, there has been a lot of discussion about that on the forums. I know there are a lot of people basically saying, you know, should definitely go up a voltage, you know, sort of a voltage rating when you're replacing those electrolytics with these tantalums. I have to pretty much just go, I mean, first of all, there's an assumption that the original caps on there were not already more than they needed to be. So that's kind of one thing, you know. They're you know, you're making the assumption that the you know, the original cap that was on there was being used at its peak. So there's that kind of assumption. The other is that I originally started recapping these based on instructions from others. So, you know, it's not like I just suddenly woke up and I was like, you know, I was the you know, world expert on recapping or something like that. I got a lot of my guidance from other people. And those people were basically saying, yep, no, these caps are fine. You got no issue with these. And so I went, okay, that's good. That was when I was really only recapping my own stuff. And then, of course, I continued recapping others. Now, I have, under certain circumstances, gone in and put more powerful caps on. In some places, higher voltage rating, but on the whole, I mean, you know, I mean, I just have to really go on the fact that these computers are all still working. So, but I know it is a contentious issue on a lot of those forums. I tend not to get. It's like that whole thing about the LC apparently having a LC2 or LC3, one of them. Apparently having a cap on around the wrong way. That's one that just, oh man, don't jump onto one of those forum topics. Wow, how dirty is that? Let's see. And of course, you know, another thing that I should mention is that all of these sort of recaps I do, for most of them, most of the computers that I recap, I have one myself, with very few exceptions. So it's not like I'm just, you know, sort of recapping them and never see them again. I mean, I've got Mac 2, I've got 2CX, 2CI, 2VI, 660 AOV, Quadra 700, Quadra 950, LC 2, LC475, LC575, LC580, Classic 2, another Classic 2, another Classic. I said SE30, did I say SE30? SE, Mac Plus, 512KE. You know, I've got a lot of Macs. And I've done a lot of recapping on them. So, you know, I put it this way, I'm monitoring their progress. Okay, so I think it is time for me to flip the board over, because I think most of the other caps are on down the bottom end. So flippity flip. Faster to say what you don't have. Probably would be. Got a 610, a 6100, 72. I've got a couple of 7200s. G3 desktop, G3 tower, G3 beige tower, G3 beige desktop. Got a G4. G4, what are they? Oh God, I always forget the code names for them. But anyhow, titanium or grey, whatever G4. I've got a bunch of laptops. Got, you know, several. I've got a Lombard, and a Wall Street, and yeah, and I got lots of iBooks. Love the little 12-inch ones. You know the little 12-inch? I think they were iBooks, weren't they? The G4 ones. Little 12-inch ones, the aluminum, where the keyboard is the same width as the actual laptop. They are just the cutest little computer. Then I love them. Love them. How many Mac 2s do I have, Dana? Well, last count it was 3. How many Mac 2s do you have, Dana? Watch Dana get triggered. Triggered. Mind you, Dana does have one thing that I do not have. Well, actually has a few. But one of them, which is one that I would really like, is he's got a Mac 2 FX and I do not. I'd love to have a 2 FX. It'd be a real good addition to my collection. I'm making a meal of this. Sorry, I'm getting a mouthful of fumes here. My fume extractor's not quite in the right spot because of where I am on the board. Whenever I have caps like this where you might have, say, 2 or 3 in a row, I need to take extra special care to make sure they're all straight. Because it really makes them stand out if one is crooked or not in the same spacing as the other one. I've recapped a few TurfXs, but I don't have one. I mean, you know, look, really, I mean, when you look at the Mac 2 in terms of its performance and all that sort of stuff, I mean, you can kind of argue the point, why would you want to grab one? But as I said right at the beginning of the live stream, for me they have a fairly historical significance, given that they were the first modular Mac, the first colour Mac, first Mac with new bus slots. What else? First Mac with 8 RAM slots. First Mac with a floating point unit. First Mac that wasn't a 68000. I think there might still be some of that adhesive under this cap because he's standing up a little bit on the board. Alright, so there's those 3 on. Let's continue moving along. So, oh, there's one up here that I need to stick down. Stick down. We also call that solder. So it's stick down. That's my special fancy terminology that I use here. I'm going to stick that guy down. God, it's going to be disappointing if this thing doesn't start. And just so everyone knows, I give it about a 35% chance of working after this work. I give it probably then after ultrasonic cleaning, probably even less, because it's probably going to expose a lot of damaged traces. But we'll see. We'll see. I do think it's all repairable, but I just might need to spend more time on it, that's all. But I've just got, I've got only a limited amount of time to do these live streams each weekend, and I am getting towards that limit now. Usually has to do with me needing to eat. Oh, I brought a drink down, didn't I? Hey, look. Yeah, time for refreshment. Oh, man. God, I wish I'd remembered that earlier. Yeah. Oh, energy. Neither 2CI works. Oh, dear. Yep. I think if you were to actually get hold of a 2CI that just worked these days, you would have to consider yourself incredibly lucky. Same with like a 2SI. If you have a 2SI that just works, they're just getting too old, you know. If you had a Mac 2 that just worked, which you could well have, it would have to be the revision A that has the axial capacitors, and it would need to have had its battery snipped away a long time ago. And I got one like that. I quite literally have up in the house a Mac 2 that works beautifully and has never been recapped. Someone had the foresight to remove the battery from it, I don't know how long ago, you know, years ago I'm guessing. So there's no corrosion, not a single piece of corrosion on a single trace on any of the boards, no leakage on any of the capacitors, and it just works without anything being done to it. And that is pretty impressive for a computer of that age, the old Mac 2. But the same could be said with things like, I mean, it would not be at all surprising to just switch on and have a Mac SE working as well without any additional work. Okay, got a cap here. Oh, Kate, thank you very much for joining. We are working on a Macintosh II here that has suffered from quite a lot of corrosion to the traces because of well, probably, you know, from battery leakage primarily, and just trying to see whether I can do, within the short time span of this live stream, enough repair work to maybe get it to chime. It may not get it to chime today, but we will see. It would be very rewarding if it did, but I probably need to go over it again and look for more trace damage and do some more repairs, but you never know, we might get lucky. So if you're someone who is bored out of your brains by watching me solder but enjoy watching me test things, you've arrived at the right time, because we're getting very, very close to the soldering bit, at the end of the soldering bit, and very close to the testing bit. Decaf coffee with some rum. Oh, that sounds pretty good to me. A shout out for people who are not aware of the Macintosh librarian. Please do go and check out her channel. She has some really fun content there. And I tell you what, it's slick too, I must say. Makes my stuff look like amateur hour, but never mind. That's another story. And of course, the Macintosh librarian's mascot, Mackie. That's the only place you can go to see Mackie. So if you want to check out Mackie, go to the Macintosh Librarians channel. Right, let's just have a look here. Dun, dun, dun. Mackie is live. Bruce Morgan, hello. I don't think I've said hello to you today. Mackie is watching too. That's awesome. I'm pleased to hear it. I hope Mackie doesn't mind. I hope Mackie doesn't find it too disturbing seeing me do surgery on one of his grandparents. But the hope is that this surgery will mean that the grandparent gets to live another day. Right, so I'm going to just go and look. I think I've got all the caps on, but this would not be the first time that I've missed one. There are 13 on here, so I'm going to have to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12. We missed number 13. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There we go. Have been mentioning in a couple of my live streams lately, talking about Blue SCSI, which is one of the new players in the SCSI emulation game. I am in the process of getting myself set up to sell them to Australians. It'll be very interesting to see what the SCSI emulator game looks like in, say, 6 months. People keep asking me, is the Blue SCSI going to spell the end of the SCSI to SD? And of course my answer to that is, I don't know. I think there is still a market for the SCSI to SD. It may not sell as many now. I know a lot of people, particular people like me who have so many vintage Macs, are always looking for cheaper ways of setting themselves up with, sort of emulation drives. Okay, let's just check this. So this is for anyone who might have missed it, this is the main trace repair that I've done. It's this great big long one snaking all the way along there and then underneath the RAM slots and then down to here. Now the fact that I've really only repaired one single trace on this makes me think that it probably won't work, because I think that there's got to be more than one. But we will give it a whirl. Actually, we know there are some damaged traces up the other end, but they're ones that only impact on the soft start. And I'm not going to be using the soft boot thing here. I'm going to be using a power supply, and I'm going to switch it on with switch it on forcefully without having to use the keyboard to switch it on. So let's just change views to top view. There we go. And let's get the microscope out of the way, because I'm pretty sure we're all recaped. So we've got, there's 14 surface mount electrolytics here in total. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think I might have counted one of them more than once. So we just won't worry about that. We'll just assume that I got it right the first time. Excellent. Knows the soldering iron is essentially the key to new life. Is the extractor drowning out my ravens, or are they not around today? Not hearing much from the ravens. So Dana has a very keen ear for the birds in the area, and we do have ravens here that make very interesting noises. Very, very commonplace for us, but apparently not a common bird sound in other parts of the world. So they kind of sound like a child whinging. Okay. So I reckon Capacitor SVs will still be used. Yeah, look, Charles, I definitely think when it comes to the external unit, and who knows, there could be one coming in the future, but when it comes to the external unit, I definitely think the SCSI to SD 5.5 is such a well-designed machine, or thing, with the exception of the way the plastic case juts out to make it really hard to connect them into a Macintosh II CI or a Quadra 700. But that's relatively easily resolved either by getting an L-shaped adapter at the bottom so that it goes upwards, or by just getting a little, you know, those, like, they call them a gender changer, but ultimately it's just like a little extender plug. You can just put one of those on the end of it, and that allows it to just stick out, you know, an extra few mils so that it plugs in okay. But yes, the 5.5 is just such a brilliantly made... I've got one here in my pocket, I think. Sorry, I'm probably... yeah, it is in my pocket. I'm going to bang the microphone. Hang on. I'll just mute while I do this so that it doesn't make too much noise. Is that a SCSI 2 SD in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Okay, so there it is. There's the SCSI 2 SD version 5.5, and this is one of the most useful things. I only have one, but it just gets used so much. All right, so let's see what happens. We're going to get a speaker. Here's a speaker. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. And we're going to plop that there, plug him in. Hopefully get some noise out of that, we'll see. I should really check that I put these all on with the right polarity. It's just having one blow up on me recently. It's made me a little bit cautious these days. Okay, they all look good, looking good, looking good, looking good. Okay, then I get my power supply, and as I say, this is not a genuine Apple power supply. This is an ATX power supply that has been modified by me in order to force the Mac 2 to start up, even if the startup circuit doesn't work. So I'm going to connect this up now. I haven't got a full-size one of these plugs, so I've got two half-size ones that I joined together like this. It's really annoying, but it's just, that's what was available to me at the time. One day I must get a proper connector for it. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Nice. Okay, so that's connected up there. This is all the positive voltages here. That's all the grounds on. Oh, you can't see it. That's all the positive. That's like your 12 and 5 volt there. That's your negative there, and that's a thing. I can't remember what that is. That last one's a thing. Hey, how about I look it up? Because I've got a little guide for that here. That thing, bet your Peter knows. That one is minus 12 volts. There you go. The blue one's minus 12 volts. All right. Now, once again, as soon as I apply power, this has no power switch, so as soon as I apply power to this, we will know one way or another whether it goes. Well, it's not going to chime because I haven't got any RAM in it, but at least it might complain. If it complains, that's great. All right, so getting my power, go to plug this in, stand back a little bit because sometimes things blow up. That's very promising. That there was a little chime letting me know that there is a problem with the RAM. And you know what that problem is? There ain't none. So, I have to find some RAM now, don't I? One thing I can tell you, if you're going to use RAM on these old ones, don't use this sort. Does not like it. Doesn't like it at all. So I'm not even going to bother sticking this in here. You need RAM more like this. This one that has like 8 or 9 chips on it. If you got that, you got a much better chance of it working. So this for me is a promising enough sign to see if I can find some RAM. Oh yeah, cool. I've got some. Got some here. I've got 4 1 megabyte SIMs. It's from someone else's computer, but I'm going to use them anyway. I've only got 2 here. This is from a Macintosh Classic. This is a Classic memory expansion board. That's your 1 megabyte there, and then another one, and another one. So the board has 1 megabyte on it on the actual main logic board. if you put this card in, you expand it to 2, and then if you put in 2 extra ones, you expand it to 4. So that's how you expand a Macintosh Classic from 1 megabyte to 4 megabytes of RAM. Okay, so this RAM, I think I've got a pretty good chance with. So I'm going to give this a whirl. And I'll just have to remember to put it back in there because it's not for this job. It's for someone. It's for someone else's computer, and I don't want to be stealing other people's things. That's why I keep very, very thorough records of what I have here and what people give me, and I take photos of it and make notes about it and all that sort of stuff, because I want people to be able to feel safe, even if their stuff is here for a long time because I'm busy. I want them to feel safe that they are going to get back exactly what they sent me. Right, got 4 1 megabyte sims in there. Now let's see what happens if I plug it in. That is a happy chime. So we are considering that a happy time. So now we just go the last stages of testing, and we are going to actually see if we can get an image. So I'm going to connect up my NuBus card. This here is an Interwear NuBus video card. Provides us with 24-bit color. Well, I think it does more resolutions, but there's a little switch on the back, and I don't have a manual for it, so I don't know what the switches do. So maybe one day I'll have to just test them all. So let's plonk that there so you can see it. I know it's not the best way to be looking at this on this stupid little screen, but I don't have a lot of option here at the moment. My, what do you call that thing? The scaler, my scaler. Just stay up. Will you just stay up, please? Just stay up. My scaler doesn't really work well with these older display cards. It works really well with anything from like 68040 onwards, but when I run it on these old 68020s, or I run it with these old NuBus cards, it just does not like the signal coming out of them. Not one little bit. Okay, let's try this. Oh, that's the display card. It's a Vimage. There, look at that. We've got a cursor. So, last thing we'll do, just because it puts a smile on all of our faces, I will connect up a keyboard. I will connect up a SCSI to SD, and we'll see if we can actually get it to boot into an operating system. May have trouble with the keyboard because we've got some busted traces around there, but we'll see. There we go. So plugged in the keyboard, get to see my bald head. It's a bonus for everyone. Got SCSI to SD, connect him at the back. Now this may not work because of the termination issues related with the internal termination, not terminating. How many times can I say terminate in a sentence? So there's SCSI to SD on that. I think it's system 7.1 it should theoretically boot into. Let's say 4 megs of RAM, so that should be enough for it to run even if it doesn't load all the extensions. And we'll just connect him up. I've got a mouse so that I should be able to make the cursor move around. Let's get that out of the way, and then we can consider it a very successful day, and I can head off and go and eat some lunch. So, moving the cursor, look at that. Isn't it amazing? The SCSI to SD just went flicker flicker. Waiting, was that the little flicker? Was that the little flicker? Oh, look at that. That is a happy Mac. That is a happy Mac. Well, thank you very much, Joe. I do appreciate that. And thank you very much to Kate. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Too far. There we go. All right. It's not exactly like looking at a scaler, but at least we can sort of see what's happening. You'll notice that the little Mac there is in black and white, and that's because it has no batteries, has no PRAM, and when there's no PRAM it will default to black and white. So we can quickly change that, make it in color. There we go, system 7.1. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it may not work after that because of all the damage traces. Sometimes This is quite literally, sometimes the corrosion is what is keeping continuity on some of those older traces. And then when you take that corrosion away, it just leaves gaping holes in the traces. So there is a possibility that after cleaning, this one won't work anymore, but that's okay. I know it can work. That's the main thing. Let's go here to... I'm actually looking forward to telling the person who sent this to me that it works, because they definitely had a kind of attitude like this. There's no, this thing is not going to be an easy fix. And look, it wasn't an easy fix, but I don't think it was quite as bad as he thought it was going to be. Here's a little set date control panel. This has been mentioned on Facebook a fair bit lately, so I will just make mention. On these vintage Macs, when you go to set the date and time, they only give you two digits to put in for the year. And the way they were designed was that anything from anything above 19, so 20, 21, 22, up to 99, it assumes you're talking about the 20th century. So in other words, when you put in 20, it thinks you're talking about 1920. So if you're trying to set the date on these vintage Macs and you're trying to put in the date as 2021, it'll think it's 1921. This little plug-in here called Set Date, which you can just grab off Macintosh Garden, this one here gives you the option to use 4 digits to enter the year. Because the system itself does actually store the date with 4 digits. It's just the interface that only allows you to type in 2. So with this, you use this to set the date rather than the date and time control panel or the general control panel. So you set the date with this and then it works fine. So just a very, very handy little utility to have around, good to know about. And then let's just go here to monitors and see if we can bring up some glorious colorlessness. Oops, missed. Color. Millions. Look at that. Smooth color. Yummy. And just because we were talking about it a little bit earlier, I'm going to fire up Civilization. Oh, bye, Steve. Thank you for rocking up and sticking around to the end. I do appreciate it. Where's my Civilization? I've got to remember which disc it's on. I think it's on disc 3. So let's open up disc 3. This will only take a second and then I'll let everyone go. You can all sigh of relief. I backed up a hard drive from someone. Their hard drive was called Coprophile. Don't look up what that word means. Okay, where are we? Multi-boot system. I know I've got a games folder in there. Got Warcraft as well. Gotta love the old Warcraft. Games. Civilization. I'll tell you a funny story about Civilization. A friend of mine gave me a book on Civilization strategies. I was like, oh, awesome, that's a great gift because I love playing Civilization. Then, I don't know, about a month later he asked if he could borrow it and he never gave it back to me. I think he probably should have bought himself a copy at the same time. What do you think? Okay, so I'm not going to launch Civilization because I don't have enough memory. So we will sign off at this stage and I will say thank you to everyone for joining. Yeah, why don't I just do this? Alright, okie dokie. Alright, let's just flick over here. We can be happy about the fact that we have got another Mac 2 brought back to life, ready to live another, whatever it is, 40 years or since then. I want to thank everyone for rocking up. Thank you for the people who gave me the super chats and the super stickers. I do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and thanks for keeping me company while I worked on this. So I hope to see you at the next live stream. If I didn't say hello to you, I promise you I wasn't ignoring you. It wasn't personal. Thank you for keeping the chat all active during this time, and I do hope to see you at the next one. So let me press the end stream button and then awkwardly wait for the "Are you sure you want to stop?" and say good night, thank you, and see you all next time. Bye now.